We're not only changing the way we work, but also the way we think, which means putting ourselves in the positions of our clients and asking, what can we do better?
Quand je servis comme moi, je voudrais être servi.
Un service de qualité et un service efficace et personnel.
Going the extra mile is looking further forward and looking in a broader way for possible solutions.
To me, going the extra mile means saying, how else may I help you?
Je suis bonne dans ce que je fais et je veux être excellente.
Comme l'apprentissage est continuel, la poursuite de l'excellence l'est aussi.
No matter how much we have to be willing to continuously learn and try new things.
Welcome to our seminar, Delivering 5-Star Service in Social Security, Practical Advice for Managers and Employees, which will be led by Mr. Richard Rochefort. We will start with the opening remarks of Mr. Juan Carlos Ulloa, Financial Coordinator of the CS, which will be introducing the activity on behalf of our Director, Mr. Leonel Flores Sosa. Please.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, who are here with me and the ones who are linked via internet from different parts of the continent, as well other work members of, especially the members of our organization. On behalf of Dr. Leonel Flores Sosa, Director of the Inter-American for the Social Security Studies, who entrusts me to convey, because he is unable to be here with us today, due to the fact that he's attending another compromise of our organization. Then I want to welcome you to our seminar called Delivery 5-Star in Social Security, Practical Advice for Many Employees. This seminar represents one of the efforts of the current administration to consolidate an academic program that addresses the interest manifested by the 17 countries that create the fourth region of North America and the Anglo-Caribbean for our seas. One of the challenges of the current management, which was determined to face since its beginning, has been to strengthen the bonds with our brothers from the north part of the American continent and the island territories of the English-speaking Caribbean, whose particularities have given us the urge to develop an innovative approach. That is why we have decided to lean on Richard Rochefort, who I deeply appreciate his unconditional support. He is an international expert on issues related to the modernization of the public sector, whose experience is based by a number of worldwide training and presentation focused in the development of institutions capable to provide best quality service. With Mr. Rochefort's outstanding experience, we have a seminary in which we hope to gather not only our English native speakers, but also all the ones who are interested into obtaining knowledge and developing skills to constantly improve to the user service. In this way, the activity that gathers us today, virtually and in person, parts of the social security, also represent the pillar of redistributive policies in the world, and is one of the most important junctions where it is evident the role of the state as an entity in charge to provide services to the people that's constituted. Regardless of the diversity of social security schemes that exist in the world, we always find to the service as a transversal similarity among them, which represent a critical challenge that requires a review and a continuous improvement. It offers quality service that not only fulfill but exceed the expectation of the users. It must be one of the central of the government institutions that consider themselves as a modern and efficient. To glimpse this horizon in appearance like a distant utopia, we can, as Isaac Newton once said, to stand on the shoulder of the giant. In this metaphor, the giants are not the individual and their act, but the good practice for developed committed work teams that both vocative and professionally seek the satisfaction of its users and also design and use the adequate tools to measure it. The Social Security, the satisfaction of our beneficiaries should mean a key point because they are the reason of our institutions. Not only sustain us through their contribution, but legitimize us through their opinions. Therefore, consider a five-star service must not be an utopia, but the horizon that every day we try to reach. I have no doubt that this seminary will be of great benefit for all. In this way, we take it for inaugurator in Mexico City at 8 a.m. on December 5th, 2014. Thank you for your attention. And excuse me for the...
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. Now, let us continue with the activity. The agenda. Let me introduce to our guest and conference of the day, Mr. Richard Rochefort. He is a recognized expert on service excellence in delivering Social Security programs and former senior leader in the Public Service of Canada. Mr. Richard Rochefort is a brilliant strategist and outstanding public speaker, facilitator and executive coach who has delivered presentations and workshops on service leaderships, organizational culture, and business transformation to thousands of public servants in Canada and around the world. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our guest and conferencist, Mr. Richard Rochefort.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone in Mexico City, and good morning, everyone joining us virtually throughout the Caribbean and in my home country of Canada, in the United States, and in fact, throughout the region, throughout South America as well. My name is Richard Rochefort. As you heard, I was a former public servant in the government of Canada, a proud public servant, a passionate public servant. I'm one who believes very strongly in the profession of service to citizens, and it gives me great pleasure to do this today. Before I start, I would like to thank people because, honestly, this is a first. This has never been tried. So, by the way, do not action. I am not a professional actor, and my colleagues here at CS have been working around the clock to get this session organized and getting ready for this. And we're trying something new for the first time, so please be indulgent. We will do our very, very best to make this as professional as we can for your benefit. But before I go, I want to thank CIESS, Dr. Leonel Flores, for his vision in wanting to reach out to the community about this very important topic. This, I believe, is mission critical. When we talk about social inclusion, you must not only design good programs, but you must deliver good programs, and you must ensure that the service to citizens makes them feel valued when programs, and that is what we will be talking about this morning. I would also like to thank the team here at CIESS. I would like to thank Mr. Samuel Arellano, Mr. Ricardo Ira, and the entire team led by Mauricio, who's behind the scenes here leading this. They are doing outstanding work. I'd also like to salute CIS because I'll tell you, when I was in Canada, the first time I heard about the organization was back in 2010 when I received a call from CIS asking if we might open up our college. I was the founder of Open Up Our College to Caribbean colleagues who wanted to improve service. And we were able to host two groups from the Caribbean and Mexico, and in fact from Colombia as well, who came to Canada in the middle of winter. You can imagine how cold it is right in winter in Canada, in Saskatchewan. And they braved the cold and came and spent time, 2010, 2011, 2 weeks with us, working on this entire thing and going through what we call service excellence certification, because as you will hear in Canada, we consider service to the public to be a profession, one that you need to be professional at and one that you must serve. No matter what degree you brought to public service, it is very, very important that you reach out and do this. So thank you to CIS for that. And of course, thank you and greetings to our colleagues across the Caribbean. You can imagine, as a Canadian, I am extremely fond of the Caribbean, and I spend a lot of my time there anytime I have the opportunity. my wife Marie-Catherine and I make our way down to the Caribbean. Most recently, we were in Grand Turks and Caicos, and we were visiting also the Bahamas. And interestingly, in the Bahamas, because you'll find out very shortly that I am a service junkie. I'm always looking for examples of good service and where service is being talked about. Can you imagine my surprise when I got off in the Bahamas and I walked maybe 1 block away from the ship, and there in the park was a display with all kinds of signs from the National Insurance Board of the Bahamas. A member of CIESS, a member of CIS, that was trying to explain to the public what it is that we do and how we do that, the mission, the of that. So it was absolutely thrilling. And anytime I have the opportunity, I do get out there. So greetings to our colleagues from Anguilla, greetings to our colleagues from Antigua and Barbuda, greetings to Aruba, greetings to Bahamas, greetings to Barbados, greetings, warm greetings to Belize, greetings to the British Virgin Islands, greetings to Curacao, to Dominica, greetings to Grenada, Jamaica, greetings to my colleagues in St. Kitts and Nevis, greetings to St. Lucia, greetings to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, greetings to Trinidad and Tobago, greetings to the Turks and Caicos Islands, and of course, greetings to my colleagues in Canada. So you heard a little bit about me. Let me just add a few things. I worked for 35 years in the government. Officially, I am retired. My wife will disagree with me on that because I have been extremely busy ever since my retirement in 2012, following my passion, which of course is service excellence. I believe in it very strongly, and I believe in it not only in my country but around the world. So I've been spending a lot of time working on this work. But during my 35 for 14 federal departments and agencies in Canada. Some people say I could not keep a job. I'm the kind of person who changed often. But very often I was sent in when there was a question of transformation. Large transformation projects, that's where I spent most of my career working. And 1/3 of my career I spent in, I think, a very, very noble thing is learning and development. You'll find out I'm an avid believer in continuous learning, that you cannot just say that you've reached the goal. It's a journey. Learning is a journey, and you must continue throughout your entire career to invest in your own learning and development so that you can be truly professional and artisan in the work that we do. I had the privilege of Service Canada. What an honor and a privilege that was. And I was able to join that organization in its infancy, when it was only 1 year old. It was launched on September 2005, and I was able to join it in June 2006. And the mission when I was there to join was to try and help the employees move the culture of the organization, culture of program. It's like pusher, a pusher culture, a culture of program to a culture of service. It's a very, very different thing, as we'll find out. And one of the things that we were able to do was to build a college called Service Canada College, which I'm so proud to say still exists today and is going strong. And the mission of the college is to introduce a service culture to a government organization of about 16,000 employees. So that was the beginning of Service Canada, and the college was launched in September 2000. A big bell was rung that day. The RCMP police carried the bell in the room. I'll never forget that day. The bell rang, a new day began for me, for the Public Service of Canada, and many of my colleagues joined by video conference, just as we're doing today. And the bell rang to start something which I call service as a profession in the public sector. Bring back service as a profession in the public sector. So I believe it was a great day, and it's something that's been worked on now for over 9 years, and the journey continues. And I'm not here to pretend that Canada has any particular solutions that are more bright than anything I've seen. In fact, I believe the best solutions come from looking across boundaries and talking to each other and working across boundaries and sharing best practices. And to me, that's the richness of this organization, to bring us together now virtually through the magic of the media, virtually, so that we can, quote unquote, steal shamelessly from one another. Why not? We should steal shamelessly from one another. And if we can leapfrog each other in this journey towards service, the winners are the citizens of our respective countries. They will be the winners. Not only will they receive the services that we provide and the programs that we deliver, but they will feel valued. And feeling valued is the beginning of people contributing to our societies. So that's the importance of what we're doing today. So what are we going to be doing today? So we're going to be talking about not 4-star, not 3-star, 5-star. 5-star service in Social Security. I'm sure if I went around, I've done this many times in several countries, I've talked to individuals, and I think individually, everybody's close to 5-star. Close to 5-star. Everybody is very good at service. Comes when we look at the space between our chairs. Quite frankly, space between our chairs, and we have to work hard to get to 5-star. We must aim for 5-star. And the question to ask ourselves is not from our citizens, is not how do you evaluate our service out of a total of 5? That is not the question. The question is, what could I do better, or what could I do differently to achieve a 5 out of 5 every time I ask the question? What could I do better or differently? And often it's that little something, and it's that little extra something that we're trying to get at. So that's the topic of, and I will try and provide a condensation of 35 years of experience and all these connections I've made around the world, and to offer practical advice to managers and employees who may be joining us today on how they might want to achieve that. Now, anyone who knows me knows I'm good at a podium, but I can only stand it for so long, and I have reached that point in my presentation. I no longer wish to use this podium, so with your permission, with your blessing, I shall remove this podium, take it out of the way, because it is standing between me and you. And also, there's another thing that's symbolic, but for me is extremely important. I will also now proceed with something that I've done for a long time, and there you go. I'm retired. I don't need this anymore. That's for you. You people are young, you're doing the work, you need the tie. I no longer need the tie. And the other thing is, I want to have a discussion. I do not want to hide behind this tie. So we're going to have a discussion today. We're going to tell it like it is. I will lay it out on the table. And also, by the way, you have the opportunity, you have live chat that's possible here. So I will be speaking for about an hour and 3/4. And then we will have, the last hour will be in your hands. If you would like to raise questions, have discussion with me, we will have a question and answer period in the last hour. So please use the live chat. Tell us what you think. Please, we invite questions, etc. And if you feel like it, cut your tie. But if you need it for work, please hang on to it. This could be a career-limiting move in some organization. Let me make myself more at home here, and we'll get started with the presentation. So here we go. Get to work here. So first, what I'd like to say to you is that at the very, very beginning, for those of you who were joining us from outside the country, you know that we ran a short video presentation. It was about 1.5 minute video, and it's dated. You probably noted it was dated. That is exactly the video that was shown on September 14th, 2006 in Canada to the very first servants who made their way to Regina, Saskatchewan, about service excellence. And back then it was a boot camp. It was like a boot camp, because really to unlearn the ways of learn the new way, we needed 2 weeks. We spent 2 weeks in the classroom, but we did everything. We went and visited industry best. We tried to also do role plays, learn from each other. We had actors come in the classroom, all kinds of leadership development to try and get our employees to see things in a different light. So was the kickoff, and it was designed to show that, in fact, when you actually have a conversation with employees, because you probably noted that employees were being interviewed during that video, it was the chance for employees to voice their opinion on this journey. And you saw it in the video that most of them want to be excellent. In fact, I can tell you, because I had this opportunity more than once in my career, to go from coast to coast in Canada, and you know we have a large country. I spoke firsthand to 1,100 public servants 1 year. And what I found out was I met public servants doing all kinds of work. I met scientists, I met policymakers, I met actuaries, I met all kinds of people doing all kinds of work. And if I can tell you this, my friends, there is one common denominator in people who work in public service. At the end of the day, even though they may not always be satisfied with their pay or their classification, they have a denominator. They want to make a positive difference in the lives of citizens that they serve. They all want to do that. And all they're asking for, in fact, in their work, to have that room to maneuver, that opportunity to express their talent and to put it to the use of the citizens that they serve. So that's why we showed the video, and also as a means of getting the energy going on these things. So I will through the PowerPoint presentation, and if you're out there, you'll see that we'll be flipping from live to the screenshot so that you can actually the text. I apologize in advance. Some of the slides have a lot of text. I'm just that way. I would like to say, put the entire book on one page. So I've done the best I can to simplify the slide presentation, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as we come through. Let us begin. I want to say that, first of all, when we talk about 5-star, this is not just a public sector. This is not just a public sector experience. In fact, the private is slightly ahead of the public sector on this one. And you note this now throughout. You'll find thousands of examples. If you start to open your eyes like me and become a service junkie, you'll find thousands of examples of companies that are working so hard to get your feedback. Took the trip from Ottawa, Canada to Mexico City, and already on my BlackBerry, on my iPhone, there have been about 10 different requests just from the service providers I used from the time I left home to the time I arrived here, asking me how I felt about the service they gave. This ranged from the taxi company to the airline that served me, to the restaurant that served me. Everybody who served me is asking me to complete a small survey, and even some cases offering me a free meal or an opportunity to win on the airline if I fill in their little survey. Everyone is for a 5 out of 5. Why is that? Because in this century, what differentiates different companies is their service. If you look at banks, there have been tremendous improvements in the service in the banking field, in Canada especially. But the only difference between Bank 1, Bank 2, and Bank 3 is the quality of the service they give and their ability to retain someone. Because they all have credit cards, they all have ATM machines, they all have extended hours now, they all have nice facilities, etc. So why would you choose Scotiabank over the Royal Bank over the IBC? Well, basically, it's the service that they give. So they are constantly asking the question. And I mentioned earlier that my wife and I had the opportunity to travel on a cruise ship recently. If I could airlift all of us, wouldn't that be nice? If I could airlift all of us and plop us on the deck of a cruise ship, we would be able to learn more about service in 1 week than anything I could possibly teach you in a classroom setting. The cruise ships, and now there are many hundreds and hundreds of cruises that are going on around the world, pride themselves on. You walk down the hall in a cruise ship, and the person that's cleaning the floor looks up at you and makes contact with you with their eyes and is asking you, before you even have the question in your head, "Sir, how may I help you today? Is there anything I could do?" The man is cleaning the floor and he's asking you, "What could I do to be of service to you today?" And the same happens when you go to the dining room, and the same happens on the deck with the entertainment bar staff. Every ship seems to be of one team with one mission, making you feel valued, making you feel special. That is the feeling we're trying to bring into the public sector, trying to bring into social security, because the work that we do is nation building, and we need to have that same attitude of service towards the citizens that we serve. Now, we are making strides in the public sector. And so my first practical advice to you, I've tried to condense it, is I'm hoping to create a network of service junkies. So try and take a strong interest in service and start to notice as well. One of the things we do on the course that I teach on service is mystery shopping. Some of you may be familiar with that. This is not a new technique. My mother, who worked in a grocery store for 37 years, tells me that back in the 1960s, they had people disguised as who would come in and buy the products, and then prepare a report on the quality of service, and they would use that to improve themselves. So I'm inviting you to become service junkies, each and every person who's watching today. Start to notice what good service looks like. Find out what you like about service, how you like to be treated, and then turn around and pay it forward. Start to transfer that into your workplace, into the services that you provide, both internal services, by the way, and external. Today is not just about serving the directly or the clients directly. It's also about all of my colleagues who work in human resources, in finance, in IT, in all of the professional people. Every one of us has to think about this mentality, this service approach to things in their work. So become a service junkie. So I mentioned that 5 out of 5 was the new standard. So my practical advice number 2 is always aim for 5 out of 5. And remember, you're never there. If you get 5 out of 5 once, that doesn't mean you'll get it the second time. So remember that there's always a slight bit of room for improvement. There's always a way. And remember also that your clients also evolve. They become more knowledgeable about your programs and services, and their expectations move as well. They become higher, and when you spoil them with good service, then they want more. And that's fine. That pushes us to excellence, and I think that's a good thing. But always aim for 5 out of 5, and never take 5 out of 5 for granted. Now, there are examples abounding in excellent service that I've seen all over the world, and I'll start with Australia, where Centrelink was, for Service Canada, almost an inspiration when it started. And Centrelink, the whole notion of Centrelink when it was built was to have a one-stop shop so that they wouldn't have to go to many different places to get their services. And every time they had to change addresses, they had to go to a different office. Now they have Centrelink, they've been evolving it, and they even offer medical services, and it's simple and easy to use, and their offices are right across the country. So they are doing great things. And look at the youthful jump in the air that you see on the slide here of the people who do this work. There's a lot of youthful energy behind it. I had the privilege of going to Colombia, and I went to Compensar, who, by the way, has been a good member of our organization. And Compensar is doing work in improving its service to citizens. Once again, they work in both recreation but health as well. And the work that they're doing under Carlos Mauricio, it's absolutely outstanding work, and I was able to see that firsthand. So there are examples from Colombia. And also in Colombia, the city of Bogota, under the theme Bogotá Humana, a human Bogota, has an institution. And here you see me standing in front of this organization. And you walk in there, and there are thousands of people going in there every day, but they all have a smile on their face because of the service that they are receiving from the people that serve them. From there, I take you all the way around the world to India. I will never forget when the representatives from the government of India came to Canada to visit. We had 39 countries visit in the 6 years I worked at Service Canada, but India came one day. And they were representatives from the office of the Prime Minister of India. And I was asked to make a presentation. And they were sitting on one side of the table, and here's the Canadian delegation on the other side. And it was so funny because I remember I was telling them about how in Canada, you know, we have over 600 points. We have a country that's so we have 600 physical points of service where Canadians can get the service. And I'll never forget, then our colleague very, very humbly said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Rochefort." He says, "I'm from India. We are about to open 100,000 points of service, 100,000 points of service in India. There shall be in every village where people will be able to get good service, one-stop shop." Because India is a country of villages. And sure enough, when I got there, look at what I found. A common service center where you could get all their services, many of them online. This was being piloted when I went there. And I've got to say, and some of them may be online, I don't know, there's a big time difference delay between Mexico City and Hyderabad, India. But in Hyderabad, India, there's a group of people working as we speak on what I consider to be one of the very best websites in the world on service. And it's called the India. You see it here. It is in 28 languages. 28 languages, and it reaches out to the poorest communities in India, and it is doing an absolutely fabulous job at translating service. They are even ahead of Canada in some things. They are using push technology. For example, when a woman is pregnant, she will receive periodic telephone calls through the gateway, reminding her that now she should go see the doctor. It's been 3 months in her pregnancy. 6 months, another phone call, because in India everyone has a cell phone. They have cell phones, and so they've integrated that into their service. So wonderful things are being done in India. I take you to Brazil. Brazil, in many ways, is done a giant leap in this field and is ahead of Canada and other countries in many ways. What I especially like about Brazil, and this is, every state in Brazil has an approach to client service which is towards social inclusion. I visited in Sao Paulo, Pupa Temple, one of the cities in the world, as you know. And what I'm struck by is that they did not call their center Service Brazil. Service Brazil. They call it Pupa Temple, which means the Save Time Center. The Save, brought to you by the government of Sao Paulo, brought to you by the state government, the federal government. But they call it the Save Time Center. Why? Because they have actually listened to citizens, and they understand that the most precious resource people have is not money. It's time. It's time. And by putting up a sign that says Pupa Temple, you come here and you will save time. People are coming in droves from all over Sao Paulo. There are many offices of Pupa Temple throughout Sao Paulo, and they even have mobile services, as you can see, for the smaller communities where they take the service. And you see the smiles on the staff there. That is the welcome that you get there. You feel very special. And I even have a video, if some of you are interested, to see this online about what that experience is. But that's not all in Brazil. In Brasilia, they have Na Hora. Na Hora means the on-time service, the on-time service. And it's located, interestingly, in the subway station, in the metro, right there, where all the people go. So it's very convenient. They go there, they get their service, they take the metro back home or to work, and you're greeted there by 10 agents are there. And of course, in Rio, it's Pupa Tempo, and the originator of the whole experience is Servicio Atendimento, it's in Portuguese, Service of Attention to Citizens, SAC. And they're the first ones who tried this in the late 90s in Bahia, in Salvador do Bahia. And it's wonderful what's going on there. And you do feel special. Believe me, the pictures in a shopping mall, a very nice shopping mall. And most times you go to a government office and it's far away from anywhere, and it doesn't look very nice. Well, this office looks very, very professional. And you walk in there and it's on a par with the nicest stores that they have in the mall. And when people walk in there, you all of a sudden see that they stand up taller, because this is their government serving them with the programs that they serve. In the UK, a lot of work, and I've visited job center where their job placement program, a lot of work has been done on the online. Now, some people say the only way you can give good service is in person. Well, that's not true. A lot of people like online service, and more people like online service. They like self-service. They like to do it themselves. They like to be in control of the transaction. I'm reminded of my mother, who's now 87 years old, who, her and ATM machines. For years, she said, "Richard, no ATM for me. I want to see a human being when I go to the bank. I want to deal with a human being." And I said, okay, we'll do it. And we would drive her to the bank, and she'd stand in line and wait for her turn. And sometimes it would take a long time. Until one weekend it happened that she needed some money very quickly, and I taught her how to use ATM machine. Guess what? She never went back to the bank. She uses ATM machine. She's very happy with that. She's 87. And some people say old people can't learn the new ways of technology. That's not true. If they taught, they will learn, they will like. People like self-service, so do not discredit online service as being. And if you actually replace jobs with online, then find higher purpose for the jobs that are changed. Move into online, very important. And of course, the United States is going that way as well. Working with colleagues there, they're doing fantastic things. You see at the bottom right here, Social Security mobile applications. It's absolutely marvelous what they are doing on My Social Security, where you can go in and actually see your file from A to Z, and therefore be able to make the decisions you need to make in terms of your pension and your allocations. So a lot of work is being done on the online there. I was in Chile not too long ago, and I salute my colleagues from Chile, Jorge Farah and others who are working there on the whole Chile Atiende. what an inspiration. They have not only transformed this in record time, they've done this in the last 2-3 years, but they've gone the extra step. Every single member of Chile Attende, every single employee had to go through service excellence training and be certified. Certified means, and I was there when they had to pass their exams at the University of Los Andes, they had to get an 80% mark on their exams, and they had role plays and all kinds of things to make sure they were actually able to practice what is being preached in terms of service to their citizens. To me, they're a shining example of what can be done. And then, of course, we're talking to Caribbean colleagues. And I have had the privilege of, first of all, as I said, receiving in Canada some wonderful people from different places. Here I'm just showing a few of the people I met in St. Kitts and Nevis. And last year in Salvador, when we had the CIS session, and I've seen examples in all of the countries. And of course, we have Operation
1, 2, 3.
This year, and I think Mauricio, we have a short video that maybe we could show our colleagues there, a 24-second video. Just
let's go! Bye-bye!
So did you see those balloons flying on top of the roof there? That was live. That was just a few short. I salute the entire team at the Social Security Board of Belize, 300 employees that have been through service excellence certification, and the management team that is trying to move a very ambitious service agenda. Again, once again, listening to the citizens and trying to transform. Of course, today I'm focused quite a bit on the human dimension of service transformation, but there's to do as well on technology and on the organization. So going on, it's a very, very big project, and I salute them for trying on that. So once again, in the Caribbean, starting from a base of nothing's happening. In fact, I have witnessed firsthand great service. I've even mystery shopped in the Caribbean around Social Security, gone in, asked for questions, pretending to be a new resident of the country, and asked for, and I have been served wonderfully. So you have a very, very strong base to work with. We're already, I would say, at 4.6, 4.7. So what we're talking about is just that marginal improvement. Latin America is no different. Again, I was in Salvador last year, and I could see in the health sector, Dr. Flores was a big part of that, and in Costa Rica, the year before, what's going on there. And there are other examples from Honduras, from different parts of Latin America where work is going on, and I salute that. And then now I'm back to Canada. And Canada is not just about Service Canada. In fact, the government has adopted a service policy, and I can tell you at the moment as we speak, there's a program called Destination 2020, Vision 2020, that is aiming to get every federal department a service strategy. So that's happening as we speak. And then the same thing is happening in our provinces with Service Ontario. That's just one example. We have the same au Québec, où j'habite, and we have it in many, many cities. Everybody is concentrated on that. And so brings me to practical advice number 3. I've already stole my thunder by telling you what it is. Steal 5-star service ideas shamelessly. Visit one another's websites. Talk to each other across boundaries. Video conferences with colleagues. If you're interested in anyone, speaking to anyone in the entire country of Canada who's an expert on this, and you're interested in a particular area, please get in touch with me to connect you with them so that we can learn from one another and improve. I think that's the beauty. We used to say knowledge is power. We used to say knowledge is power, and most of us working in public sector were raised on knowledge is power. If we know more than the next group, we will fail. And that was the attitude when I started in government. But we realize that that's not the right attitude. In the knowledge world, knowledge sharing is power. So please get on with that. Oh, by the way, don't forget, if you have questions as we're going along, use the chat room that is available to you. Moving on. So there, if we're talking about moving in the area of exceptional service, there are really 5 things I'd like to talk about. First, I would like to focus on citizen-centered or client-centered policy, programs, and service. What's that all about? I would like to talk about the culture. What does that look like, a service culture? And what's different about that? I would like us to have dialogue around the underpinning of a service culture, which for me is continuous learning and continuous innovation. That's absolutely key. And I'm a firm believer in leadership at all levels. Leadership has nothing to do with the number of stripes that you have on your shoulder, or the title that you have, or the size of your office, or the size of your ego. It has to do with what is the fire burning inside you and how you're letting that out to actually make something happen, to lead people through different organizations. So I believe in leadership at all levels of an organization, and that has to be sprung forward. And then number 5, last but not least, most importantly, the foundation for everything. Everything else will crumble unless you have solid values and ethics. Values and ethics are the underpinning. If money is disappearing, if people have to slip money under the table to get service, etc., it undermines anything you might want to do in service. So we need to have a conversation, and we need to keep it at the forefront, a conversation on values and ethics. That's the foundation. So let's start with citizen-centered policy. I am going to get up. I'm telling you, there's a second X on the floor here, right here in front of me. And this is where I've been told to stand when I want to tell you a story. So I'm going to tell you a story at the moment about a place way up in northern Canada where it's extremely cold. It's called Kugluktuk Nunavut. It's an Inuit village in the far reaches of northern Canada. And that's where it's located, so you get a feeling it's very close to where Santa Claus is going to come from in a few weeks from now, okay? Now, this is what it looks like in the brief summer that they have. The time it looks like this, okay? There's a lot of snow there. So let me tell you a little bit about Kugluktuk and why I'm raising that. A few years ago, I had the privilege of being invited every year, senior officials from the Government of Canada. We would visit a community in the far north, and representatives from every department of the Government of Canada would go to a small community and meet with the people locally and have a dialogue with them about how things are going. And you can imagine, for me, the Vice President of the Canada School of Public Service in charge for public servants across the country, this was important for me to first of all get the feeling firsthand, because I work in the capital city of Ottawa, somewhat isolated. But I'm a young man from Northern Ontario. I'm from a small town. So for me, this was an opportunity of a lifetime to go there. So we got on a very small plane, and there were about 25 of us on this plane, all senior people from the Transport Department, from the Environment, from all the different departments of government, very proudly going to visit the poor people of the northern community of Kugluktuk. And I remember, because the plane was very shaky in the air, and I was very nervous, and I couldn't see the town because there was snow, and are we going to land, or what's going to happen here? And I remember when we landed, it bumped twice. Then we went back up, turned around, came back, and finally landed. My heart almost. And what was the beautiful sight when we got out? There was about 20 trucks. I say trucks, people there drive a truck. Ford trucks or GM trucks were standing by, and it was all the citizens of that town, because we were considered VIPs, very important people visiting their town. Very rarely did they get visitors from outside, and even when they did, it would be a politician who would only come down to the bottom of the plane, show one or two people, and then get back on the plane and leave. Now the town is made up, it's a 500 people, but average age 22 years old. Average age. Large families, a lot of young people in that town. And then I remember we all got in the truck, and we were taken around on the grand tour of Kugluktuk. And I was in the truck there, and the man was pointing out. And as I listened, at first I had a big smile, but then my smile I started to lose my. He was showing me what I could see, but he was telling me what was not there. What was not there. He was pointing out things that were not there. For example, they had a brand new airstrip, but they were waiting for 2 years. They still had not received the light for them to land at night. No lights for the thing, because it's not the same department that gives the light than the one that puts in the road. There was a beautiful harbor project, abandoned, halfway done, only halfway done. There was a crane that was rusting in the harbor. And it was sad to see, because the crane was rusting in the harbor. I said, what happened here? They ran out of money for the project. I saw a brand new Hospital. Hospital. Brand new hospital. Road to get to it. So the hospital had been sitting there for 3 years with no road to get to it because it's not the same department. They had the road, they had the hospital, but no road to get to it, so they never opened the hospital. Then I went to the elementary school. And I walk into kindergarten and grade 1. Beautiful classroom. All the little children. Big hugs and everything. Fantastic looking classroom. Then I go to grade 2. The ceiling is leaking. There's water everywhere on the floor. What's going on? Oh, they receive a subsidy for grade 1, grade 3, and grade 5, but none for grade 2 and grade 4. So only half the school was repaired and the other half was not. Etc., etc., etc. All of these programs, well-intentioned programs, were doing some things, but not everything. And I'll never forget, we went to the recreation hall, and the entire community made us a beautiful stew. We had deer meat, and they were all dressed up. And all of the elders, and the mayor was there, and the chief of police was there, and they're all in suits. And us, our cravat and our suit, we went and sit down, and they came up one after the other and shared how things are going in that village. And what I found out was we were missing the mark. We were missing the mark because maybe the health department did a good thing by putting in the hospital, but they didn't work with the transportation department to get the road there. The fisheries department worked on the pier, but they didn't work with the other department to get the money to finish the job. Trying to do a good job, but not working with each other. We're not a team. In fact, many times we were competing with each other, and we were letting down this community. What was the result? All kinds of social problems in that community. A serious drug problem, a serious problem with jobs, with looking after things. And the people were still, despite all of this bad things, were nice to us. I would not have been nice to us. They were so nice to us. And they pleaded with us to Ottawa, to our headquarters, please work together. Please make it happen. Please work together across boundaries. And in many ways, that starts with good policy. It starts with good programs. But it starts with teamwork in those policies and programs. It has to work across boundaries and people have to work together. So that's just a small example of a place called Kugluktuk where social inclusion was not really happening because we're not working necessarily as a team. And we need to get back to basics. Actually ask the citizens, what is it that they need? What is it that they want? And not sit in an office far away and assume, that famous word assume, that we all know what it is that the citizen wants and needs. We have to talk less and listen more. Talk less. Assume we know nothing. And even those of us, even me, it took me 30 years to understand what I'm just telling you about Kugluktuk. I'm disappointed in myself because for 30 years I assume I know what's best for Kugluktuk. I know nothing. So those of us who have been there a long time, who have been in our jobs for many, many years, we need to pinch ourselves. Pinch. Basics. You know, put on our listening, put on our big ear, get an elephant ear and listen for what it is that is the true pulse and what is it that they want. We would be surprised to learn that it's not often not what we think. We would be surprised. And we have to work our policy together with our program, together with our frontline delivery. By the way, those of us who work on the front line, where I spent a large part of my career, we're not stupid. We can inform policy. Policy should come and have a conversation with us about what's working and what's not working on the front line before they design something that might not be the best fit. We need to talk to each other this way, not just this way. We need to talk this way. Sorry. Now, I want to talk about the research that has been done in the last 20 years around what is it that our clients want exactly? What is it that they expect? And I've told you, go mystery shopping, figure out what you need, and it's probably something very close to that. And I would like to, first of all, salute and acknowledge the Institute for Citizen-Centered Service. This is an organization, not-for-profit in Canada, that is doing research on behalf of our federal, provincial, and municipal governments on what drives good service. They work on things like benchmarking in Canada and all over the world in terms of what are the best practices. And it's called the ICCS, Institute for Citizen-Centered Service. They've even published a book called The Certified Service Manager Body of Knowledge, because they actually certify managers in excellent service. And they even have an examination. Saluting them. And I'm also at the same time apologizing to my colleagues who work there who may be watching, because I'm not necessarily using the very last edition of the research. There are updates to this research, and there are some different words that are being used to describe some of the drivers. So I'm going back maybe 2 or 3 reports, but I'm not apologizing for it, because I would like us collectively, everyone, if we can only memorize one thing from the presentation today, let's memorize these 5 principles, these 5 drivers, because they account for most of what citizens will comment on as being satisfied with or not. The number one thing that citizens expect from us, to no surprise, and it's knowledge. Do not be surprised. Do not fall off your chair. It's knowledge. They expect us to know what we're talking about. When they call the Social Security Board of whatever country, they expect us to know what we're talking about when it comes to their entitlements for pensions, for job placement, all of these things. And I have very good news for you, colleagues. On knowledge in Canada and in most countries I've visited, we score extremely high, way better than the private sector. In fact, in Canada, I checked, it was 10 weeks of training, 10 weeks of solid content training before we allowed a single employee to talk to a senior citizen in my country about their pension. 10 weeks of training. That's very heavy-duty training to get all of that knowledge. It's very complicated legislation. We have about 9 weeks of training for people who work in employment insurance. In fact, as governments, we tend to overinvest in knowledge training. We really train people well. And our people do not wish to look foolish in front of citizens, and so they equip themselves with the knowledge and they happily participate in this training. So actually, we're doing very well on knowledge, which is the first driver of service excellence. Okay? Now, you think about this. When you go into, supposing you're looking for paint in a paint store, and you want advice and guidance on what to paint, and you go into the paint department, and there's a young man there who's just come out of university or school or whatever, and he's doing this work, but he's never painted in his life. But he's very nice. He's a very nice man. But he doesn't know a thing about paint. And you go to see the man and you say, I don't know what paint I need. Can you help me? Well, I don't know. Let's and I'm going to try and see. Maybe tell me the truth. Can you give a 5 out of 5 to that service when they don't know anything about paint? I don't think so. I don't think so. Even if you're generous, maybe you'll give 3 out of 5 because he's a nice boy. He's a nice boy. We give him 3 out of 5 because he's trying. Trying is good. But knowledge cannot be replaced. So this is the foundation. And by the way, I'm saying this, be very careful if you're contemplating a move to a service culture, because a lot of people who were born in the old school think that when you move from a deep knowledge culture to a service culture, which is more horizontal, you're telling people that they're now going to be dummied down, to use their expression. From now on, knowledge is not going to matter. No, that's the total opposite. You have to invest in knowledge and continue to invest in knowledge. You have to be knowledgeable. Otherwise, your clients will not be happy. And the second driver of excellent service in the minds of the people we serve is the second one from the bottom on the screen. It's fairness. Fairness. What does that mean? It means no matter if I'm black or white, no matter if I'm rich or poor, no matter if I'm handicapped or if I'm a man or a woman, I come in for the service and I get treated fairly. It does not mean equally, because sometimes when a person has a handicap, you need special provisions to help them to deal with their handicap, and that's okay. And maybe you have an express lane for people who have their money in their pocket. Maybe it's okay. But provided there's fairness, there's some logic to it. And it's not because, oh, you're my friend, I'm going to give you great service because you're my friend. That does not pass. And when you start treating your friends more special than the others, people notice. And the word spreads very, very fast that this place is all about nepotism, and it's all about that. So, full of fairness. And once again, may I give you great news. We win over the private sector on number 1 and number 2. Hurrah! Fairness and knowledge. We beat private sector in every survey in the last 2 years. So what's the problem if we're that good? Listen in. The last 3, we're not so good. We fall on our sword on the last 3. The first one we're not so good at is extra mile. What's that? Some of you measure in kilometers, so I'll say extra kilometers. Okay, what am I talking about? Think about it. When you go to a restaurant and you're asked to rate the service at the end, I will bet you that you will not give that restaurant a 5 out of 5 unless they did something special, something extra, a little something maybe you were not expecting. That's how you're going to give them a 5 out of 5. It's a wow. It's the wow service. What is the wow? And when we talk about Social Security, I'm telling you, I'm honest with you, there's not often a wow. There's rarely a smile even. There's not often a wow. And often we're very confused with our own processes and very focused on them. We don't even notice there's a up standing in front of us. We're so bogged down in our processes. And what does extra mile mean? Now, I will give you a lived example from Service Canada. One of the things that we inherited when they became Service Canada, not long after that, was we started to hand out passport applications. We were able to, when Canadians needed a passport, they could actually use one of our 600 offices to make a request for a passport. And one time, a family that was going to Brazil, a young family, a mother and a father and the 2 children, they came to the Service Canada office because they proudly had saved all their money to go back about 15 years after, to go back to Brazil, to their home country, to visit with the family. They were so proud of this. They came to the office and they asked for a passport application, Canadian passport application. And the agent was very happy to give them the application. Now the agent also knew something you probably know. You need something else to go to Brazil from Canada. What is it? A visa. You need a visa. But visas are not the responsibility of the government of Canada. Visas are the responsibility of the Embassy of Brazil. You must apply at Embassy. So the agent never told the family, don't forget the visa. Never said that. So what do you think happened? Well, this happened in Ottawa. The family went to the airport in Ottawa. The whole family from Brazil, they went to the airport and they proudly showed up at Air Canada counter, and the woman said, may I see your passport, please? And they showed their passport and they were very happy. Then the woman said, where is your visa? Visa? We need visa? We didn't know we needed a visa to go to Brazil. We're originally, we didn't know we need visa. Well, I'm sorry you need visa. Guess what happened? The family lost, they could not get on the plane. They had spent 7,000 Canadian on the tickets. They lost that, it was non-refundable. And they thought back to themselves, now why didn't that lady tell us we need a visa? I know it's not her job, but why couldn't she tell us maybe to not forget the visa? Why couldn't she tell us that? And eventually the story actually made its way into the newspaper, and I found out about it, and I was asked to kind of look into it a little bit. It wasn't a reprimand or anything, but I went and I sat down with the agent. I found the agent, and I said, okay, did you know this family needed a visa? Yes, I knew that family. Why didn't you tell them? It is not in my job description. It is not written in my job description. My job is only to do this, is look after the passport application, which I did. I did my job. Therefore, anything more than that, I do not do. I'm telling you, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. When we script our people to the point that they cannot even point people to the others, even though they're not experts in visas, at least point them to check things, there's a serious problem with that. And that is happening an awful lot. And on this one, we fail terribly vis-a-vis the private sector. This is one area, the wow factor. How that service experience into a memorable one? How little something that's a wow? And it does not have to be complicated. It could be that warm smile that will make that difference. It could be actually walking an elderly person to their seat as opposed to talking at them or pointing to where they need to go. It could be helping them fill out the form if they're stuck. Or, as I saw in Pupa Tempo, helping them write a letter if they can't read or write. Maybe that's what needs to happen. So there are very, very different ways of creating that wow and that. So that's the extra mile. What does outcome refer to? Outcome refers to result. Unfortunately, too often in the public sector, the result isn't the person you're dealing with. The file is handed off from the person I'm dealing with to the next person, to the next person, and it often gets lost in the shuffle. And the result takes a long time to come, and sometimes we never hear about it, and the citizen calls the first person they dealt with. Monica, where is my file? And Monica says, well, no, I gave it to Ricardo. Ricardo, where is my file? Oh, I gave it to Jeremy. Well, okay, Jeremy, where's my file? I don't know. So it's lost, and we lose. And we don't like either to give bad news, because, you know, in the government, I've been talking about private sector. We are not private sector. We're not there to always give people what they want. Sometimes it's bad news. But we're human too. We don't like to give bad news. I've seen this film many, many times. I have bad news to give. They're not getting the job, for example. It's Friday afternoon. I have bad news on Friday afternoon. I'll wait till Monday. Because it's Friday. I don't want to ruin the person's weekend. I'll wait till Monday. Monday comes, well, it's Blue Mondays, you know, so maybe we'll wait till Tuesday to give them. Tuesday we forget. Thursday the client, here's my news. You, no job for you, no soup for you, no job for you, goodbye. The person is angry because they know you know, you've known for a week and you didn't tell them. And they would have preferred you to give them the bad news last Friday. Who are we to be God and pretend that we don't know? So we have to do a better job at communicating results as well. And the last but not the least, I was saying to you earlier, the most important resource that people have is their time. We think it's money, but it's not. It's their time. We're only on earth for a limited amount of time. And the last thing we want to do in the morning is get up in the morning. I cannot wait to go stand at the insurance board in a lineup for 3 hours. Wouldn't that be fun? Or I can't wait to get on the telephone line and wait 4 days to get somebody to call me back. That's life. Nobody has that as a dream. So we have to, again, pinch ourselves about timeliness. Put ourselves in the shoes, be empathetic, put ourselves in the shoes of those clients and understand, like Brazil has understood with their Poupa Tempo and their Na Hora, that it's about saving time. And then we have to kick the tires on our processes. Those processes can be streamlined and simplified, but because we have no competition, there's no competition for whatever process we come up with, we take the most complex process, good for us, and we force that onto citizens. Why do we do that? I'm saying that ultimately it's a losing strategy. We need to find ways to improve timeliness. And by the way, colleagues, this is the #1 weakness right across Social Security. In every country I've visited, it is timeliness. People are now spoiled. They know they can get resolution of their problems online with banks and everything else. And they say, well, why cannot my government do the same thing? Why can't my pension be the same thing? Why do I have to wait so long for results? Kick ourselves on that, work on those processes to make them better. So, end of the day, the drivers. Practical advice number 4. I said it, practice empathy. Talk less, listen more. Talk less and listen more. Now I want to zoom out. I would like to zoom out from where we've been having this conversation up to now. And I want to talk about something, once again, I give credit to Ralph Heinzman and Brian Marson, both pioneers. These are Canadians who worked at the Institute for Citizen-Centered Service that I'm talking about. They've done this research. It's very solid research now. We know this is to be absolutely true. And for you, there's absolutely no surprise in what I'm about to tell you. Once again, it's pure common sense. The public service value chain. If you understand this, there's an awful lot you can understand about how to create a great service. First of all, if you want trust and confidence in your institution, be it government or the security board or the state government or the local government, if you want trust and confidence, it is absolutely imperative that you deliver service satisfaction to your clients or your citizens. We've already established that, and I've shared with you the drivers. But I realized is the close connection between employee engagement and citizen satisfaction or client satisfaction. You must row upstream. If I was in a canoe, I'm talking about rowing upstream, and you must pay attention to the workplace. You must have a workplace where employees feel empowered to give good service, where employees feel happy to come to work, where employees are proud of what they do, they are very clear on their role in the mission, and they know that they make a difference. If you do not invest in that, it'll be very difficult for you to deliver trust and confidence because there'll be leakage all over the place. And remember this, in a chain, you are only as strong as your weakest link. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So that if you have just one disgruntled employee serving the client, one, it can ruin the whole thing. I can tell you, I have an example that I just lived coming to Mexico City. I got on a plane. Everything was perfect, except the person in the airplane who was serving us had a bad attitude. The pilot was perfect. The people doing the baggage was perfect. The air traffic controller was perfect. The people who put the de-icer on the plane was perfect. Very rude to the person next who needed a glass of water for her medication. It was an old woman. She needed a glass of water to the medication. And she almost barked at her and made her wait about half an hour to get the glass of water for her medication. And she was not very nice. How do you think I feel about the entire trip now? It was going well until that point. Then this chain broke down. One employee, one bad attitude, the chain broke down. And that happens in our workplaces a lot. So we have to pay attention to our workplace and our employee engagement. That's actually the secret of today, which is if you get this right, everything else happens automatically. A lot of things happen automatically. So don't try and come in with a magic. If you're a manager listening or a leader listening, don't try and come into your staff tomorrow and put a magic wand over their head and say, I am now transforming the workplace into a workplace of choice and we're going to be great at service. That's not how it works. This is an inside-out revolution, not an outside-in. No one can wave the wand and say, we're not going to be good at service. It has to be a personal decision about your attitude, the way you're going to treat your client, the way you're going to treat your colleague. It's a personal decision, and there's no way you can come in and force that on people and say, oh, we're all going to be nice today. That doesn't work that way. Human beings don't react that way. And there, by the way, is don't attempt to use logic. It does not work. It does not work. Take a look at the bottom of this slide. If you are successful, and you should do employee surveys from time to check how you're doing on employee engagement. You should have ways of measuring this. If you are able to achieve a 2% increase in employee engagement automatically without doing anything else, happy clients. Happy employees, happy clients. The increase is automatic 1%. We now have that empirical evidence that we can share with you at any time. And Heinzman and Marson have done the research. It's there for you to read on the site that I mentioned. So this, I think, is a breakthrough and something that we can aim for. I want to just to bring this to life a little bit, this is my X for a story. Okay, so I'm back on the X for a story. I want to tell you a second story. And just to tell you that when I talk to you about all these drivers, about bringing them all together. So there's not one that's more important than the other. They all have to be working together. So I'm going to relay a story to you, dating back to 2006 when I first started at Service Canada. Not that long before, my father passed away. So my father passed away in 2004, and in 2006 my mother received a letter from the Government of Canada about her pension, her Social Security pension, and it was a long piece of paper on both sides of the paper, and it was written in very, very small print. Okay, so picture that. The person is over 75 years old and is receiving a letter with very small print. A big, big piece of paper with words on it on both sides in a brown envelope. And so what does my mother do with that? She opens it and she's still grieving. My mother and father were married for 52 years, so she's about the loss of my father. She's sad. She's in her own apartment by herself. What does she do? She calls me. I'm the oldest of four, and I work in the government. So she calls me, she says, I don't know what you do in the government. Most mothers do not know what their children do in government, but anyway, says, I know you work in the government. Can you come to my house and help your mother understand what this letter is about? Absolutely, mother, I will be there. On Saturday morning, Mom, I will come and see you, and we'll discuss this letter. So on Saturday morning, I go to my mother's house, to my mother's apartment, and I take the letter, and I notice it's from the Social Security Department, where I work. And I'm in the Social Security Department, so I'm feeling good, about this. I have to read the letter. It's in French and English. And I read the letter, back and forth, back and forth. I can't understand the letter to my mother from my own department. I'm ashamed. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't figure it out. I read it, and my mother doesn't see that I'm sweating. And and by the way, she's pretty fast on the dime. She says, there's something funny about the letter. The envelope says Service Canada, but the letter says Human Resources Social Development Canada. You know, she has a grade 8 education, but she's pretty fast on the dime. Anyway, I look at it, I can't understand. At the end of the letter, it says, call 1-800, toll free, no problem, you'll solve the problem. So I said, Mama, no problem, Mama. You call this 1-800 number on Monday. They're very good people. I trained them. They're very good people. They will help you with this problem, Mama. So my mother, she gets on the phone on Monday morning, you know. She starts the call. And Monday morning becomes Tuesday morning. Tuesday becomes Wednesday. Wednesday becomes Thursday. 4 days, 20 times she has to call. But you know, my mother, she's retired. There's no rush. You know, she's watching her favorite television show. She's doing her crossword puzzles and all of these things. There's no rush. Finally, on Thursday, my mother, she gets through on the phone. It was in French. It was in Montreal. Bonjour, madame. Comment puis-je vous aider? Hello, madame. How may I help you today? This is Service Canada. How may I help you? So my mother, she has the letter. And she starts to explain to the girl on the phone what her problem is. She's trying to understand this letter. Do you know what the agent said to my mother? Do you have a clue what the agent said to my mother? She said in French, c'est écrit that, Mrs. It's written right there. Can't you read? It's written right there. Then that's what she said to my mother. Can't you read? It's written right there. Well, my mother, how do you think she reacted to that? Now, be empathetic. Remember, I told you, put yourself in the shoes. How do you think she was still grieving for my father? So she says, it's probably me. It's probably my fault. I did not explain myself correctly, okay? So my mother, she takes the letter and she starts again with the agent. Hello, yes, it's about this letter. What the agent said to my mother? Excuse me, madame. We only have 120 seconds to deal with each call, and I must let you know we've exhausted the time. Bang! Hangs up on my mother. That's how an officer from my organization treated my mother this one time. By the way, be very careful how you interpret this. I am not saying the call centers are good. I have tried them 99% of the time. 99.9% of the time, they're fantastic. The people are outstanding. And I am not as well picking on any part of the organization I work for. They are fantastic. But it just takes one. Just takes one. And on that day, my mother got lucky and got her. But now put yourself back in the shoes of my mother. She tried her son. No good. She tried the 1-800 number. No good. What do you think my mother does? Because she's a smart woman. You know what do you think? She folds the letter. She puts it in her purse. She goes to bingo. Bingo! Bingo game. My mother, she likes to play bingo on Wednesday afternoons. And there's a lot of widows there, a lot of people who lost their husband like her. So she takes the letter out. And she asks all the women in the room, is anybody ever seen this letter? Anybody seen this letter? Now, nobody had seen the letter. But they all had a story. They all had a story about bad service with the government. And they didn't make a difference between federal, state government. It was all the same. The time I called about the hole in my road and nobody came, they were very rude to me when I went for my medical appointment. It was this. It was negative, 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 negative. And all of us who work in government took a slap on the face from all the elderly people of Gatineau, Quebec, where I live that day. Because of this. So my mother, but she still didn't have it, so she put it back in her purse. She goes to the card game. She plays cards on Thursday nights. She went to card game. And nobody knew about the letter. About a week later, a former neighbor said, oh, Mrs. Rochefort, there's an office at 85 in Gatineau, Quebec. There's an office there in person. Go there and they can help you. They open at 8 o'clock in the morning. You go there. And they can solve your problem. They work with pensions. So my mother, you know, she's so proud. She's so proud. She gets up in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning, and in her words, she puts herself all dolled up. She gets herself, makes herself look very, very nice. She's going to meet her government. We have to look good, okay? And at 6 o'clock in the morning, she's in the shopping mall having the breakfast, and 1 hour before it opens, at 7 a.m., it's very cold. It's December 12th, her birthday, and she's standing outside that office waiting for it to open in the minus 20-degree weather, waiting for the office to open. Finally, 8 o'clock, the doors open, she walks in. She's like a deer. Where am I? Why am I here? I don't know. But a woman named Madame Huneau jumps out from her chair, runs to her, shakes her hand and says, good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today? Is this your first visit? And this woman, Mrs. Huneau was her name, puts her arm, my mother pulls out the letter. Oh, she says, form number GC 49-3-93. Nobody understands that form. Don't worry, you're not the first one with that problem and you're not going to be the last one. So come with me. So she takes my mother to her desk And interestingly, she sits my mother and goes around on her side, takes her chair out from behind her desk, and comes and sits it right next to my mother. Then she puts down the letter, and she takes a white sheet of paper, and she turns her computer screen to face my mother, okay? To face so that my mother can see. And she explains to my mother every form. My mother, she says, that's all it is. It was about the indexation of her pension because her husband had passed away, okay? That's all. I have lost 3 weeks of sleep about this letter, and that's all it is? She says, yes, she says. And on top of that, while you're here, Mrs. Rochefort, let's take a look at your file. So she types in the computer, and she notices that we owe my mother $56.24 for the last 6 months, that the government owes her this money. So she says, Madame Rochefort, your money is going to come. It's going to, but it's going to come. And just then, the manager, his name is Marc. Marc was walking by. She says, Marc, come here. This is Mrs. Rochefort. Her first time ever visiting our office. Oh, hello, Mrs. Rochefort. And he says, Mrs. Rochefort had this problem. This is how we solved it, etc., etc. You know what the manager did? Here's what we're going to do. If you have a get your check in 6 weeks, I want you not to wait in the line. I want you to come straight to my office. I want to take this file and I'll put it right on my desk. And if you have to come, I'll remember you and you come straight to my office and I will personally look after you, Mrs. Rochefort. Okay, how did my mother feel? She walked out of there. She was on a happy pill. She was a cloud nine. She was so happy that her government treated her this way. Now, what do you think my mother did with this? Bingo game. She told all the ladies at the bingo game about her positive experience. And then the other ladies had to admit that they had good experience too. So it started to be positive. The virus was more positive. And then she went to card games, she told everybody. This has been many years. Mother still tells that story in restaurants because she goes out a lot for breakfast and things. She tells people all over Gatineau. But we have a serious problem now at Service Canada. The old people in Gatineau do not want to deal with the internet. They do not want to call 1-800. They will actually go to that office and stand in a long lineup, wait, and the manager tries to say, you want to go to this? Nobody. They all want to deal with Madame Huneau. Only Madame Huneau. Why? Because she cares. She cares. She's genuine. It's real. She really cares about the old people of Gatineau. And that's what they want. That's what citizens want. That's what they want to feel. Now, it's a big problem for us. It's a big problem. Now, let's go back to the first problem. The letter. The letter is very complicated. Why is that letter so complicated? I tried for 5 years as one of the senior leaders to have that letter simplified so that people, why do we need stupid letters that people call us about and we don't even have enough people to answer the phone about the stupid letters we sent out in the first place? Why do we do that to ourselves? Shoot ourselves in the foot. Why do we do that? Hey, why? It turns out that this letter had been the subject of a court case, and the judge, way back in 1989, decided this was how the letter was going to be written. And it had the word notwithstanding in it 4 or 5 times. Nonobstant was in that letter 4 or 5 times. So it's a very complicated letter for nothing. I tried to get it changed. No, the judge decided. Is the judge still alive? No, the judge is gone, but his legacy, we have to leave the letter like that. The lawyers would not want to change the letter. Yeah, but it's costing the taxpayer millions of dollars for nothing. Can't change the letter. Now, what about the girl who answered the phone the way she did? The girl actually I checked, was actually given the Employee of the Month 3 times. Because she always did it under 120 seconds. Always met the standard of 120 seconds. Because we measure the time of the call, but we don't do the quality because of privacy considerations. So we don't listen in on. But she, because she did most of her calls under 120 seconds. And now, what about Mrs. Huneau? Well, the problem is we can't have all Madame Huneaus. We just have one. We should save her for the complicated cases. So we need to see it as a chain, an ecosystem that has to work together, all the pieces, the phone, the internet, the in-person, the channels have to be really synchronized so it's working well. And realize that people shop from one channel to the next. And it could be the same person making the call, going to the office, and trying to use the phone, trying to use the internet. Same person. How do you deal with that? So it sounds easy in principle, but in practice it's not. I thought I would share that story with you because I think it brings to life what I was talking about. Now, let's go back inside. Let's go back inside the office, and let's talk about culture. Let's talk about culture for a minute. And this is extremely important. And first of all, let's talk about what is culture. What am I talking about here? I like the second definition on the slide much better. Culture is how we do things around here. And even if it makes no sense, that's how we do things around here. And you'll hear that a lot, especially a new employee coming into your workplace, especially a young person coming into your workplace, joining your organization. There's all kinds of different traditions there, never written down, but it's just the way people behave with each other. The way decisions are made, the way meetings are held, the way things happen. And it has a tremendous influence on service. And this is called the culture. Are you aware of the culture? Are you aware of the culture that you work in? Are you aware of those unwritten rules of engagement? I worked in 14 departments of the Government of Canada, and inside those departments, I worked in different parts. There's not one culture. There are many cultures. There are subcultures. People who work in research have their own little culture. The scientists have their culture. You walk into an IT shop, it doesn't feel the same as a finance shop, and an HR shop doesn't feel like a, in the frontline office, they're all different. Yet, every place, there's this thing called a culture. I remember I went to the Foreign Affairs Department to do a project once, and I forgot to wear my tie. You know they wouldn't talk to me? Nobody would talk to me because I didn't have a tie, a shirt and tie. And I looked in their manual of code of conduct. Do you have to wear a tie at work? It was not written, you have to wear a tie. But if you do not wear a tie at the Foreign Affairs Department, they don't talk to you. They turn their back. In a meeting, you like talking. There's no respect for you. You don't have a tie, no respect. So imagine if I cut the tie. That would not be good, right? I went to work in the Prime Minister's department. You have a president, we have a Prime Minister. It's called the Privy Council Office in Canada. And the first thing I learned there is the only way to communicate in terms of your work is through PowerPoint. You must master PowerPoint. And they sent you to school for 3 days when I worked there. 3 days on how to prepare the PowerPoint, how much space to put on it. And unless you followed all the rules for the PowerPoint, they would not let you into the meeting. You had to have a and I looked. Where's that written down? It's not written down anywhere. But that's just the way it is. That's how we do things around here. Are you aware of those unwritten rules? Because those are often, they could be a positive, but many times they stand in the way of innovation. They stand in the way of service. They stand in the way of learning. So become aware of your culture. And what are the components of culture? Well, it's the mood, the atmosphere, and the attitude of an organization. You walk into some workplaces and it feels like the church. It feels very, very quiet and serious. And then you walk into others, you could hear laughter everywhere, very different places. And on the right-hand side, you have all kinds of assumptions upon which people base their behavior. Do you know what those assumptions are? Are you challenging them ever? Are you adapting to the times? Is your culture moving with you, or are you using the same culture? And culture runs very, very deep. I've spent half my career working on organizational culture change. I can tell you this, it's the hardest thing to move. It feels, when you're trying to move culture, imagine taking Jell-O and trying to nail it to a wall. Imagine trying to push water up a hill without a container. Pushing, that's what it's like. It's in the walls, it's in the carpet. You could change 99% of the staff and bring in new staff, and the old culture will remain. And many of the things we're doing today date back 100 years. You don't even know that you're programmed by the culture that was there like 30, 40, 50 years ago. And if you never challenge it, you could get sucked in by it. You could become a victim of it. Okay, so you have to be very careful about it. Now, there's a lot of words on here, a lot of words. I've tried to describe in this slide what we're trying to aim for. If you're interested in understanding what is this paradigm shift, we're not talking about, and I've had a lot of people say, oh, just put a little service on top of what we're doing now. That's all we need to do. We're already good. Everything's good. We'll just sprinkle a little. No. We're talking about a massive culture change in public service. Hey, I started, like 35 years ago, I told you, it's knowledge is power. It was a pyramid. You must never be smarter than your boss, they told me. Because if you're smarter than your boss, that's called career-limiting move. Don't do that. Don't do that. The boss is always right. And they used to use expressions. I remember these expressions. You know, I have a lot of people my age who say, oh, the good old days. Yes, there were some good things about the old days, but there were some very bad things too. You know what they used to do? They used to say, I will tell you on a need-to-know basis. If you need to know, I will tell you. Otherwise, you will not know. How are you supposed to do your job if you don't know what's going on? And half the time, you didn't know. So at the bottom here, you have this description. I won't read it, but the slides will be available. But the main point I'm making down at the bottom in bold here is that we've moved through the knowledge economy from knowledge is power to knowledge sharing is power. Something very, very deep happened in my 35 years. 35 years ago, things moved a lot slower than now. When I received a letter, I did not have electricity on my typewriter. It was a manual typewriter. We had 3 weeks to answer a letter. 3 weeks. And it had to be checked by 10 people, the letter. We had 3 weeks and everything had to be checked. You think I have 3 weeks now? Are you kidding me? If I leave my desk for 15 minutes, I don't answer the PIN, the police are looking for me. Where's the answer to the question? People have expectations that are way beyond that. What else changed? Used to be that managers actually and leaders, executives, actually had time to think. Now all they do is go to meetings. Everybody goes to meeting. And they don't have time to think. So I would say to you that they have lost knowledge ability or their ability to synthesize. And where has that gone? That's gone to the staff. That's gone to the people. Because now they have things like Google and internet and everything. And knowledge is not just coming in from the top now. It's coming in from the side. It's coming in from everywhere. And you need to depend on your people for the knowledge sharing. Otherwise, nothing's going to work. A manager today who says, and by the way, I call dinosaur somebody who continues to insist that they know more than everybody else. I call that a dinosaur. A manager who says, you work for me. You work for me is a dinosaur. I'm sorry. That's code word for dinosaur. In 2014, if you're a leader and you say the person works for you, there's something wrong with your frame. You've got to change it. We work together. Now, it's possible that you're working at this level of the thing, you're working at this project, this part of it, but you're a team. And you absolutely need the people, the knowledge workers, to share the knowledge. Otherwise, it stays stovepipe and you end up with gluktuk, a big failure. Or you end up with these IT projects that immeasurably fail, and 9 out of 10 of them fail because there's no horizontality, there's no sharing of ideas. So this is a paradigm shift, I would say. I'm going to use a big word here. I know it has implications. But this is a revolution, and it's a revolution that starts inside out, not outside in. So for successful culture change, you need to be working at 3 things at the same time. You all, and I know we're already very good at working at systems. A lot of work goes into systems. A lot of work in organization. But the missing link often is the people. Is the people. We're going on this big trip, but we forget the passengers. We forget the people. That's why most of my attention is focused on that. But you must have solid work being done on systems and on organization if you're going to move forward. Now here's another very complicated slide. I will not take the time to explain it here in the time that we have available. But I will tell you it's about culture. And you have to take a look at these 2 slides. It describes the types of cultures you might have in your workplace. And on the left side, it talks about this. What does that culture look like? What are the internal signs? What's the typical language people use? And what is the effect on employees? So here on this slide, for example, you have an inside-out culture, a cost-cutting culture, a blame culture. All the cultures that exist in different things. And I will, you take a look at this on your own, rate yourself, see where you sit, and then, as you go forward, you'll see a bureaucratic culture. Are you a bureaucratic culture? Are you a political culture? Do you work in a political hotbed? Do you have a dictator culture where only the big boss is right and nobody else is allowed to think? And on the very far right, at the very end, you have a service excellence culture. And what does that look like? And I'm telling you, that's the hardest one to put in place. This service excellence culture is very much about inverting that pyramid. And the boss's job in a service culture is not to come and say, go get me my newspaper, go buy me my coffee, go pay my bank bills. That's not the job of the boss. The boss, if you are dealing with the client, to come to you and say, you're dealing with the client. What are you hearing that could be helpful in terms of how we organize a service? And what is successful? That's the job. It's a coaching type of manager and not a dictator type of manager that you need to be able to work in service. And here you have the description of what is a service culture. The first considerations are customer requirements and how they can be implemented. It says the client is talked about constantly. I'll tell you honestly, in my 35 years, very rarely do we talk about the client in the senior meetings. We talk about the systems problem, we talk about the grievances, we talk about the political situation. We rarely talk about the client. Once a year we talk about the client when we do a survey. Not good enough. You can't just do this once a year. You should be talking about that client constantly, every level. Otherwise, forget it. It'll never improve. It says mechanisms are built into everything that is done. It said leaders visit and talk to clients, citizens regularly. You don't sit in an office far away from clients, you go interact with them. I don't know if you've seen that show on television, Undercover Boss. Have any of you seen that show, Undercover Boss? It has a Canadian version. I love to watch that show. I cry at the end of it. Because they wake up. All right. That's why I have a business, because I have clients and I go visit them. It's nice. But I mean, we need more of that. I'm not saying it has to be a tearjerker every time, but you have to take an interest in your clients and not always depend on others to filter the information back to you about how the client is doing. You have to do it yourself. There is a general feeling of purpose around serving the client. Customers want this. How can we do this? That's the language around the water cooler. Let's ask clients to co-create this new process. Employees feel a sense of purpose. They feel they are able to champion client needs. Employees, they can deliver service excellence. There's sayings on the wall. Client service is in. We're into client service. There's actually air cover with internal communications on this. You actually reward people for good service and not for just the number of seconds they took to answer the phone call. It's a mindset. So practical advice number 5 is align your culture. I talked about this before. I believe it's time for us, and those of us who are watching today, declare service a profession. No matter what you came in with in terms of your degree into government or into social security, make service as important as everything else. And it's not an administrative task, service. It's a profession. What is a profession? Kinds of theoretical knowledge as I'm only sharing the tip of the iceberg with you today. Make sure you know that. Become a service junkie. Make sure you're adopting service as a profession. And you have an entire slide here on how management is affected or impacted by services. This also has big impacts on an employee. If you're an employee and you're serious about it being a profession, it means much great responsibility. It means accountability for service. It means that you have to have the knowledge to be able to do this. You have to invest in your learning. You have delegated authority. You have clients, not just customers, values and ethics, merit-based staffing. There's an awful lot in the contract that needs to be revisited if you are now you're a service professional. And you have stuff here that deals with the organization. So practical advice number 6, adopt service as a profession. I get into a favorite topic of mine, which is continuous learning and innovation. One of the things I think that Service Canada and others are doing, I mentioned Chile Atiende and Brazil and others, is that they've actually using the muscle of learning as a strategic lever to move the culture. Use learning. Use learning. Unfortunately, the thing that gets cut when the budget gets very tight is discretionary spending, and it gets cut, and we don't invest in it anymore. And I tell you, my mouth will hurt from telling you, it's short-term thinking. If you cut learning, it's the first thing you cut when the winds of change start to blow, it's very, very dangerous. Now, I worked with somebody who's I find absolutely brilliant, Peter Senge. He was the father of learning organization. He wrote The Fifth Discipline. And I equate a organization with a learning organization. So what does that look like inside? It means an organization where the employees are continually expanding their capacity to create the results they desire, where new and expansive patterns of thinking are nurtured, where collective aspiration is set free, and where people are continually learning to see the whole together. This is a learning organization. But there's a lot of theory here, and I'd like to illustrate it, and I'm going to now do a demonstration, which I was gladly able to get. I'm taking you, moving to the X here, very slowly here. I want to do this demonstration. If I can get my, oh, must be in the, there they are, here they are. 3. Here, I want to do a demonstration of what I'm talking about, a learning organization. First, I'll show you what most of the organizations I've worked in look like. They look like this. They look like, hang on, I'm looking for, where's the button, please? Thank you. Most organizations I've worked in look like this. They're in a pyramid. First the boss, then the next level, and the next level down. But most organizations I've worked in are closed organizations, and knowledge is not flowing easily. So for the purpose of my experiment, I shall use this light here, because light for me is knowledge, okay? And pretend this is your organization or an organization you've worked in the past. What is the problem with this model of organization? It used to work well, by the way. In the 20th century, we valued autonomy as #1 leadership character. It sunk to the bottom of the list. But we used to like a hero leader. This guy could lead us all. He didn't even need us. You know, we were not important. He just asks us when we just sit back and wait for orders. This is the organization we worked in. The problem, what is the problem with this? When you're talking about knowledge and an explosion of knowledge, because now knowledge is doubling every 2 to 3 years, you can't carry everything in your head. The problem with it is when you try and get knowledge to go in from the side here, there's no knowledge at all anywhere here. It's impossible to get in. This place is like, there's like a with a moat. There's no way, I'm telling you, trust me, you can't see it, but I'm telling you, trust me, they're not getting it at all. For the knowledge to get in, through the top. Now, let me tell you what I'm seeing. There's a lot of light at the top, but down at the bottom, there's practically no light. Who works there? The people serving other people, our front line, the people who are giving the service to others. They work in the dark with no knowledge, no light. It's practically in this one, man. I can't even see the bottom. That's how dark it is. Okay? So this is not a very, very good model. It won't work. It'll fail. Yet it still exists today. Don't tell me it doesn't exist today. It still exists today in many, many places. This model still exists today. But it's no good. Get rid of it. Out. We have to replace it. Oh, here we go. Oh, I have to go on this side. I have to remember how I did this. Aha! Now take a look at this. You see what I did? I did not get rid of the hierarchy. There needs to be hierarchy. There needs to be a structure to our organizations. But does the knowledge have to only come in one way? No. There should be no wrong door for knowledge. There should be no wrong door. And if we're a service organization and we're listening to the client, everybody's listening to it. If this is HR and this is the front line, if this is finance and this is the front line, if this is IT and this is the front line, everybody's catching the knowledge. And you notice if I shine the light in on the side, it actually bounces and it bounces up. If I go like this, it's all the way to the top. If I put it in this way, it's cutting across all the way. Right? Every which way. To me, that's what I'm trying to describe as a learning organization. An organization where there's no wrong door for knowledge and it's coming in. Now, what do you think happens when you work in the dark too long? without a flashlight, with no knowledge. You're a young person, you have all these aspirations to change the world. You come into a workplace and you're put in a position where you have no knowledge and they put you in a box. How does that feel? It feels frustrating. It feels like you're working in that word. If you have in yourself, what happens? Turn the camera, please. You start to look for the ruta de evacuación. You want to quit. You want to change the job because that's no place for you to work. You're going to spend your whole life not contributing, not making any kind of difference. So when you work in the dark without a flashlight, and think about most rooms have an exit sign. People start to think about the exit sign. And it makes me so sad when I see dead eyes. My wife is a teacher. I asked her once, how do you know if the kids are with you? How do you know if they're engaged? Their eyes. The eyes don't lie, Richard. I deal with little kids. When I see their eyes lighting up, I know they're with me. You know it's the same with adults? I used to go sit at coffee shop at my workplace, and I'd look at the people coming to buy the coffee. And I would notice dead eyes. And they weren't there, like 26 years old, 27 years old. And I go up to them. I said, how are you doing today? You know what? How you know? They never want to talk about today. Always, how many days left before the weekend? How many weeks left before my vacation? How many years left before my retirement? Imagine that, a 26-year-old talking about their retirement. This is crazy. So many of our best people have dead eyes because they work in a stovepipe where there's no light and no air and no opportunity to make any difference. They're like robots coming into work and and no opportunity to make a difference. Bring back some life into that workplace. So I'm going to need some help to move these out while I continue. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You now have on the screen another slide with too many words. It's the most important slide I'm sharing with you and the entire presentation. It's called the ultimate test. If you can say yes, and every one of your colleagues can say yes to every one of the statements in this list, you have a service culture, you have a learning culture, you have an innovation culture, you have a winner. But every employee, because employees, then you have a problem. You have to get them engaged. Okay? Now what comes this test? Things like every person in your organization is somehow stretching, growing, or enhancing their capacity to create. Things like people are more intelligent together than they are apart. Things are like the organization continually becomes more aware of its underlying knowledge base, not just the skills for the job, but everything that the person brings to the job and draws on that talent. Visions of the direction of the enterprise emerge from all levels. The responsibility of top management is to manage the process whereby new emerging visions become shared visions. Employees are invited to learn what is going on at every level of the organization so they can understand how their action influences others. People feel free to inquire about each other's and their own assumptions and biases. There are few, if any, sacred cows or undiscussable subjects. People treat each other with respect. They treat each other as colleagues. Mutual respect and trust are evident in the way they talk to each other and work together, no matter what their position may be. People feel free to try experiments, take risks, and openly assess the results. No one is censured for making a mistake. People feel they're doing something that matters to them personally and to the larger world. I read this to you because, to me, it all comes down to that. You create this, everything else you'll find is happening on its own. This is what you need to be aiming for when we're talking about the culture of choice, the service culture, the learning culture, the innovation culture. So what's practical advice number 7? Pass the test. And if that's not your culture, make it happen. There's a lot you can do. And don't just sit back and say, well, I'm just to do it. And then the boss says, well, I'm waiting for my boss to do it. And then the big boss says, well, I'm waiting for the to do it, or the politician to do it, or the prime minister or the president to do it. No, 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 no. Take charge. Be the leader. So, in Canada, we have a college fully dedicated to this, to trying to move the culture. And it is not a 1-year or 2-year thing. It's a long-distance marathon. And something you have to continue to work at. People are engaged in what's called a certification program. And I actually worked with Canadian colleges and universities on getting this recognized for credit at college. And down the road, what I would like to see is I would like to see colleges offering that to students. Service excellence in the public sector. There you can find plenty of courses on customer service in the private sector, but there are no courses, except I saw some at the University of Los Andes when I was in Chile, no courses at post-secondary on service excellence in the public sector. We need to promote that so that as people come in, they already have that attitude. This is a description of what certification looks like, how many hours people have to take. This is a full description of the knowledge, the skills and attitudes and the behaviors that people are being trained for in order to get certification by mastery level. This is a picture of the people from across the Caribbean who came in 2010, 2011, experienced firsthand the program and now are back in their country pursuing the journey from various countries in the Caribbean. And now there's a program that's happening in Spanish as well. So the program is taking root. But now everything we've talked about means nothing unless it leads to continuous innovation. So you can have great learning, you can have great listening skills, but unless it leads to new and improved ways of serving. And you know, in Canada we have our favorite pastime is hockey. Wayne Gretzky is one of our heroes. And this is a quote from Wayne Gretzky. A good hockey player skates to where the puck is. A great hockey player skates to where the puck is going to be. So the secret here is to anticipate. Be ahead of your client, not always behind the client. Try and skate to where the puck is not going to be. Now, why does it matter in Social Security that we innovate? We need to improve efficiency and contain costs, keep up with the needs and improve outcomes for society. Most innovation in public sector is not just what I call out-of-the-box thinking. Usually it's process improvement, because this is the kind of work we do in Social Security. So these are the skills you need to improve if you're going to increase innovation. Help people improve in solving problems, help people improve in making decisions, help people improve in dealing with change. Here are key findings on successful innovation. Most is initiated by frontline staff and middle managers. It is not the executives who come up with the best ideas. It's frontline staff and middle managers. So unless you create an opportunity for that to happen, you're going to lose out. Most great innovation is not a response to a crisis. We think we need a crisis to innovate. We do not. It cuts across organizational boundaries, and it has a lot more to do than financial reward. It's not about financial recognition at all. And this has been proven over and over again. So these are the 5 competencies you need to innovate. 5 competencies. You need to be good at generating ideas. And by the way, when people are generating ideas, you need to stop using killer phrases. I have a glossary of phrases, 136 things never to say when somebody gives you an idea. Things like, oh, we've tried that before, it doesn't work. Oh, yes, but. Get rid of the but. Let the idea float. And remember something, innovation is a team sport. One person has part of the idea, and if another person hears it, they can improve on it, and it's by connecting with each other. So let the ideas, think of a garden. I mean, if you give up on your garden, the minute you put the seeds in the soil, it's not going to grow. Give the ideas time to grow. So then you need time to harvest the ideas, to develop the ideas. You need to be able to the ideas. And even that's not enough. You need to be able to market the ideas, propose the ideas. You need skills in presentation skills. And then, of course, you have to implement the ideas. These are the competencies that you need in terms of innovation. Some governments, and I forgot to bring some things from the government of Singapore, are doing fantastic things in innovation. Their learning institution actually teaches skills to all public servants as part of their basic training. We seem to, in North America and South America, not do that. It's a weakness that we have. Develop these competencies. Remember, it's a team sport. So it leads us to practical advice number 8. Hold innovation jam sessions every week. Well, you know, musicians hold jam sessions. They're a lot of fun. You actually come in and have no idea what's going to come out of it, but people start picking up, playing different instruments, and all of a sudden, a tune comes out of it. Some music comes out of it. So rather than wait and never do this, or do this once a year, do it once a week, 1 hour, over lunch or whatever. Who's got a good idea? And Let it percolate. Let it go to the top. Let the weekend work on it. Come back on Monday with a more fleshed out idea. And managers out there, leaders out there, get in the habit of saying yes to a good idea immediately. No, it won't work, but explain why. This one needs more work, and create an opportunity for more work to be done on the idea. That's how you move the yardsticks. So innovation means dealing with change. So I have a little bit of a section. I will fly through it a little bit. But you know that change is very uncomfortable. People don't like change. And a lot of what I'm talking about involves change. So unless you're realistic about change and how it affects you, you're going to have great difficulty dealing with this change. And Winston Churchill said, better to lead change by the hand than to let it grab you by the throat. It hurts when it's by the throat. So it's better for you to take it by the hand. And Marilyn Ferguson, who's a great author, wrote, no one can force someone to change. Each one of us keeps a door to change which can only be opened from the inside. Impossible to open this door for someone else, whether by discussion or feelings. So don't try and shove change down another person's throat. That's not how it works. You'll find on the internet all kinds of change theory. You have change consultants, change styles, change is a big. I personally find that a lot of it has gotten very complicated. It's down to me, it's very, very basic, this whole thing. And there are some very basic principles associated with it. And if we understand these principles, such as change makes us uncomfortable, we tend to focus on what we lost before what we gained. We too often forget to ask for help. I've put down a few principles from my experience dealing with change. And while I'm in the classroom, we usually have an exercise around this, where this is driven home firsthand through an interactive experience. So we always think we don't have enough resources. And we're not always in the same place on change. So to succeed, you need to look at the bigger picture. And the last point, by the way, put your oxygen mask on first. You know when you're in an airplane and they're giving you advice telling you how to mask, and you have a child with you. What did they tell you? What did they tell you in the plane? Put the mask on first. Many want to help everybody else before we look after ourselves. We think we're not indispensable. I have a demonstration of that. I asked for this. Okay, anytime you get to a point when you think you're indispensable to your team, your work, you can't afford to take a day off, oh my God, what happens if you're there? Anytime, think of this water here and plunge your fist in the water. You'll watch the water. It'll move all over the place. It'll adapt to your hand, make room for you. And hey, that's fantastic. Eh? You're so important, right? You're so important. Nobody can do without you, because when you start thinking you're truly indispensable, take your hand out of the water. It's calm again. It comes back. So you're not indispensable. None of us are. Make sure you look at it. Be good to yourself first. Then bring the oxygen to your colleagues and everybody else. If you're having a bad hair day, don't make everybody else pay for it. Okay? So remember this. Thank you. Here, we're going to take that one out. There. Now my hand is wet. What am I supposed to do? I forgot a towel. It's okay. I like this particular model of change, and I won't go into it, but it's simple, simple, simple. So it's an old one that's been around for a long time. It's an American-based model. But it's talking about before you start pushing knowledge onto people about change. And knowledge, by the way, isn't putting out a memo and saying, we're changing tomorrow. That's not knowledge, okay? A lot of change is announced that way. Make sure there's a lot of awareness building. And I was a Director General of Communications for many years. So you have to repeat things 5 times before people understand it, okay? Make sure you repeat things 5 times. Then you have to generate a desire for the change. You have to figure out what's in it for them. It's called the WIFM test, what's in it for me test. So make sure you do awareness and desire before you start to transfer knowledge and abilities, and you make sure you do reinforcement. This, in essence, is the model. I invite you to read about it on your own so you have that. This is an ugly picture. I hate it, but it gets the point across. Look at the ants. This is how they survive a flood. If they're flooded, they stick together and they float, and they survive any flood that you can throw at them. Now, I'm not suggesting we're going to have a flood, and I come from a country where we have floods, and I'm not ants, but being a team and sticking together is how you get through things. So, practical advice number 9, support each other through change. Building leadership at all levels. A lot of, and again, now I'm going I put these slides in not to deal with them during the session, but just to make sure that if you actually, and I will leave it with CIESS, the slide presentation, and you'll be able to get on the website, you have the detail and the sources of everything I'm talking about. So you have slides here on employee engagement, what it looks like in the workplace. If you actually do a survey, only 26% of employees are usually engaged. If you're doing better than that, you're doing extremely well. You have 54% of what are called active sleepwalkers in every workplace. They pretend that they're there, but they're not there. They're only half there. And you have 20% that are actively disengaged, and it's a self-replenishing pool. And by the way, 49% of executives are not engaged in most workplaces. If you're doing better than that, you're great. So benchmark yourself. This one is only to illustrate that in India, the best way to help a village is to build on the village's strengths, not to go in there and ask about their problems. The example I'm giving you here is a village that took strengths. Basically, they're the ones who drove the improvement, and now they have a model village that is the priorities. So leadership is also about communications. So we do a lot of what's called psychometric assessment around this. Usually these tools are reserved only for executive development. I don't believe in that. I believe I have leaders at all levels. The more self-aware you are, the better a leader you're going to be. The better leader you are, the better service you're going to give. So there are tools out there. You probably know Myers-Briggs. You've probably heard of Dynamics, 4 colors, all kinds of things. Most of them are rooted in the theory of Carl de Jong, who lived in the last century and was a psychoanalyst. It's absolutely fantastic baseline work. Should know their communication style. First and foremost, you know your communication style, and these are some of the slides. You need to build on your strengths. And at the end of the day, once you know your strengths, it's not to push your style on everybody else, but it's to understand the other styles and adapt yourself to better connect to others. That's the secret. So I'll move through this fairly quickly. Hang on here. Again, I put more detail here than was required for the presentation, but hang on. Adapt yourself to better connect with others. That was my advice number 11. And then I define a team, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport. So, I'll go back here. So a team is a group of people with a common cause. Do you know what is your common cause? Vision that is everybody buys into? If not, that's a starting point. 2, do you have a strategic approach to things? Or are you just walking in the dark without a flashlight? 3, do you have clear team goals on how you're going to treat each other, how meetings are going to be run, how decisions are going to be made? Do you have a team charter? If you don't, get a team charter. 4, do you have a culture of execution? Do you actually get anything done, or just talk about maybe doing something 3 years from now? And 4, are you holding yourselves mutually accountable? That's a team. And you notice geese, they fly in a V formation. They fly 71% farther by flying this way, because the last one comes up to the front and replaces. And the objective is to make each other look good, not to make yourself look good. That's a team. When you try and make each other look good, that is a true team. And remember, in a team, we're all in the same boat. Don't be happy if your colleague is failing. This is not a good strategy. Okay, sorry, I'm going to just... Here we have 8 observable behaviors of effective teams. A lot of research around this, and I actually do work with some teams all over the world on this. Most are good at 4 or 5 of these and weak on 2 or 3 of these. But if you have all 8, you're flying high. But a high-performing team has all of these working on all cylinders. Okay, so you need to be thinking of that. Flip through this. I'll take you to the last thing I want to do. I do want to get to questions, and we're at that point right now. I just want to close off with there's stuff on tension here, and the new model of team effect. But my number 12 was make each other look good. That's a real team. Last point I'll make is the solid foundation, the values and ethics. And here I talk about the results that we seek in terms of earning the trust and respect of the people we serve. And here it's drawn from our Canadian context, the ministers, the Parliament, Canadians, and we have to be dedicated to the public interest. And our managers in Canada, I think it's evolved over time, but this is called le napperon, or the placemat, on every manager's desk. And what I like about this is, you know, I'm somebody who doesn't like to be boxed in, but I really do like this frame because it really helps guide my action. When I started in government, I used to get binders filled with rules of things to do. They scrapped all the rules. They gave me a small document called Values and Ethics Code and this placemat on my desk. That's all I have to guide me in my work now. But you know what? This works way better than the rules before. When I used to have this many rules, I couldn't find the rule that applied to me. And now I can always find a solution somewhere in this diagram or in my little book of values and ethics. And values and ethics is like a house. And you need to have this. This, at the end of the day, unless you have this, everything else crumbles. So I wanted to illustrate that. And I tell you, the people at CIESS, they're the best. They're the best. They really are the best. I draw your attention to Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and Exhibit 3. And take a look at the slide, which talks about the building blocks in terms of public trust and values and ethics. And think of the three little pigs. There's the straw house, right? The straw house for me is a place where there is no such thing. They never have a discussion on values and ethics. They never talk about it. It's not something they pay any attention to. It's taken for granted, and that's it. To me, that is a recipe for disaster. It's a straw house. And of course, as you know, the winds always start to blow on our organizations. Winds of budgets, winds of political winds blow on our institutions all the time. And if you have no strong foundation of values and ethics, it is like this little house here. Look how easy this is to blow right off the table. That's the straw house. It falls apart on you. Well, then some people, they actually have a code of values and ethics. It's written down. It's even published on the wall. But they never talk about it. It's never something that they actually life or have dialogue about. So it's like this wooden house. The frame is there, but the foundation isn't very, very solid. Now, where's my little thing here? Oh, yes. Let's see if this house can resist the winds. Oh, boy. I have to shake it. No. Don't shake it?
Yeah, no, like that.
Like this? Goodbye. Bye-bye. That house didn't fail. Now, hey, the children of the staff here have mega blocks. You can always count on children to build a strong foundation for anything. It's all about the children. It's all about the families that we serve. So now we bring out Exhibit C. Now we don't fool around. Let's see how we deal with the big wind of change, the big wind of politicians, the big wind of social security, improvement, technology, all the winds that come at us every day, with a strong foundation of values and ethics, a code of ethics that is lived, a code of ethics that people talk about, that they ability. And here we go. That's at the maximum speed. My dear friends, I'm trying to get to move in every which way. It will not move. All the papers in the room are moving, but this is the foundation. This is the foundation that we need to build on if we're going to have a successful service organization, a successful culture, a leadership culture, an innovation. It starts with solid values and ethics that are talked about in the workplace. So to conclude, practical advice number 13. Maintain a strong foundation. Watch for the cracks. Make sure that building is strong. It's like infrastructure. It's like a bridge. Make sure it's very strong. And when you think about what's stopping us from being 5-star, think about these things. We tend to focus far too much on short-term metrics. We tend to have a compliance-based culture. Too much getting ahead by pleasing the boss. We are too much wanting to find right answers and wrong answers in things, which is technical problem solving. We don't see diversity as a richness. Diversity, it's the richness in our organizations. We need to see diversity as a richness. We tend to see management as controlling things. And we are too competitive with each other. As opposed to learning from each other, we compete, we keep secrets from each other. And we tend to stereotype different employee groups. Oh, I can't get any help from finance because they're like this. IT is like that. HR is like that. Researchers can only do this. We put labels on people's forehead. We've got to be careful about that. Look at the whole person. Their skills often go way beyond their job description. And then we have local innovations that do not spread. So at the end of the day, this is a journey, not a destination. It's a long road, and it's one, though, that is well worth the travel on. I was on it for 35 years, and I still, as you can see, am very passionate about it, and I'm surrounded by passionate about it. I know we're the butt end of jokes at parties because, oh, we're public servants and we're fat cats and everything else. But you know what? I wouldn't trade my job. I wouldn't have traded anything in my career for anything outside. I think it's noble what we do, and I think we can make a huge difference, and that's all the richness and reward that we can ask for. And so my practical advice, number 14, is the advice my mother gives me, writes to me or talks to me. My mother says, be good. So I say to you, be good. First to yourself. Make sure you're good to yourself. And secondly, be good to others. Be good to the people around you and the people you serve. And this, I now have 7 grandchildren. So this picture is dated, and it only shows 3 of them. But at the end of the day, what is all of this about? I was outside the building here this morning, just reflecting, and obviously very nervous about presenting to all of you. And I noticed a statue with a bird, a mother and a father holding a child and standing in front of the statue. And I was so inspired by it because at the end of the day, it's about families. It's about communities, people we serve, and that's what we do. And this is me if you ever need to find me. So at this stage, we're going to make a little bit of a switch in the room so we can deal with any questions that are coming in on or comments that have come in through the chat. But I will ask our colleagues to run a short video. This is once again a 4-minute video that kind of summarizes the journey from the Canadian perspective. Thank you very, very much, and we'll catch you back in a minute or two. Thank you.
Service has always meant doing the little things. It's about going the distance and about providing an extra level of excellence. It's understood that great service means satisfaction, and satisfaction means success. Competence and attention to detail create the perfect combination. This is a story of the extra mile and being proactive. We are Service Canada, the service delivery network of the Government of Canada. For 33 million Canadians, we provide excellence in service by being just a click, call, or visit away. Our mission to provide secure, one-stop service to Canadians. And it works.
People you can look up to, people that care.
The staff is very kind, very fast, the service, and everything is very nice.
C'est ça, c'est toujours comme ça. Ici, ils nous trouvent souvent l'information dont on a besoin là, assez rapidement.
When I left here, I knew what I do and what is expected of me or what is required.
C'est un atout pour un village d'avoir des services comme ça.
Every community needs this.
So, how have we achieved this level of success? To get where we are, we have completely refined, retooled, and rebuilt our culture. Here's what we have done. We began by recognizing that service is a profession, that people who give service are professionals. We have introduced a structural model in our organization where managers are expected to come out from behind their desks to be part of the service continuum, supporting their staff shoulder to shoulder out on the floor. We built a corporate university called Service Canada College to teach and empower our 15,000 employees. Everyone in every function in Service Canada is invited to engage in service excellence training. We have developed a post-secondary program in which our training is accredited and our people are certified as service professionals. We have developed leaders at all levels so that information flows throughout our organization. We have created an Office of Client that brings the voice of citizens to the boardroom. This creates a direct line between our service professionals at all levels and our leadership, so what we hear from Canadians makes its way quickly to our leaders. All of these investments in our people allow us to listen better in order to be more proactive, to respond to the needs of our citizens through outreach. Here are 3 examples. When economic times are, people need urgent access to government benefits and services. The employer announced that over 1,000 people would be losing their jobs. Local Service Canada employees were proactive and went directly to the workplace. These same employees have since conducted hundreds of labor market information sessions at the employer's sites and helped thousands of employees to apply online for benefits without having to come into our office. Our people developed a newborn registration service that allows parents in some provinces to register their baby's birth and obtain a birth certificate and a social insurance number at the same time. Providing services from several levels of government in an easy one-step process right at the hospital is crucial. These proactive services provided by our people make it easier for parents already overwhelmed by this major event in their lives. The investment is also paying off with innovative approaches to web support for our clients. Service Canada employees appear on screen to help clients find their way.
Did you know that on our Service Canada website, you can find information about these programs and services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And there's never a lineup. Online, you can view information on finding a job, raising a family, and managing your debt. There's also information online about education and training, about health, and about housing, plus a whole lot more. That's what we're all about at Service Canada, helping you get information about the services you need.
As you can see, service isn't about structure or job descriptions or office footprints or salaries. It's much more. It's about giving our people the freedom to think, to anticipate. It's about empowering them to move beyond the obvious, to be proactive, to reach out, and to engage both heart and soul in the service of citizens. And then to see that not just as a job, but as a profession, a noble profession. Any organization can deliver programs and products. What makes Service Canada different is that we listen, take action. Ultimately, it's about meeting our promise to Canadians. Service Canada, people serving people.
Welcome back to our streaming. We are back here with Richard Rochefort. We are now in our Q's and A's, and what I would like to ask is, why do you have a chicken hat and a little chicken thing in your legs?
I'm sure you can't zoom in on this, but let me just tell you what it says. This is a chicken. It says first graduating class 2006. So in 2006, we began the process of moving the culture in Canada around service. And the very first group that came, for a reason I cannot explain to you, for 4 nights in a row, had chicken to eat. Chicken à la king, chicken Kiev, fried chicken. Every night there was chicken. And so every morning I had to come before them and apologize. I'm so sorry for the chicken yet again. Tonight we will have something different. And every night they had chicken. So when they graduated, they gave me this lovely rubber chicken on a graduation hat. I received this chicken at the graduation ceremony. So that was the chicken. And about 3 weeks later, I was at home. It was winter. It was the first snowstorm. And I was in Quebec, Canada, and there's a dead-end street. There's no other cars. It's just the cars who live there that go there. It's a cul-de-sac, we say in French. And all of a sudden, my children are all excited. Papa, there's a FedEx truck coming up the street. This is exciting. Everybody goes to look in the window. A FedEx truck. And the FedEx truck pulls into my yard. And the man comes out with a suit. And he comes and he knocks at the door. And he hands me a box. Table, and I put it on the kitchen table. And I open the box. And it was this stupid chicken hat. With a note from my students. This, Professor Rochefort, is from your graduating class. It's a chicken hat. You can keep the hat only if you wear it every time you speak about service excellence. And of course, this was 2006. We're now in 2014. It has been 8 years. And every time I have worn this hat because I don't like the hat. I like the hat. I want to keep the hat. So you are witnesses today that I have yet again met my challenge from the class. This hat, by the way, has been everywhere with me all over the world. I have been at the Eiffel hat. I've been to London Bridge. I went to visit Elvis in Memphis, Tennessee with this hat. I also go to hockey games with this hat. And the team, the fans from the two teams, they look at me, they wonder what team I am for. But the funniest is when I go with this hat. When I go through the security at the airport. I wear this hat with my tie and my suit and everything else, and I walk through the airport in Canada, and I come to the airport, a very serious face. And I go to the airport, and they look at me, and they don't dare tell me to take off my hat. They think it's my religion, okay? So I stand on a chair, they stand on a chair, and they wave the wand around my head to see if they're doing it, but they don't want to show it. And I walk through with my hat. So that is why, my friends, I'm wearing the chicken hat. Also because I'm less nervous with the chicken hat. So there you go. Now, we have questions.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to start with the questions that first arrived to our chat room online.
Awesome.
This question is from Rodrigo.
Yes.
He wants to know what important value a public server must have.
What is the number one most important value a public servant must have? I will say integrity. You must be real. You must be. If you make promises, you keep your promises. You must be in integrity. In fact, I was telling you earlier that the number one quality of leaders, as in the research about 20 years ago, was autonomy. Your general Patton leading the troops in front to the next hill and etc. That has fallen down the list. And the number one value today is, number one leadership quality that's admired is integrity and honesty. And we have too many examples of where integrity has gone wrong. And so this, for me, has now become number one. And it may change over time, but at the moment that would be.
Thank you, Richard. The next question is from Lisa Miller.
Yes.
She wants to know what is the most inspirational public servant history public servant has ever told you that demonstrates a 5-star the service. The most inspirational story.
What is the most inspirational story that has ever been told to me that demonstrates a 5-star service? Wow, there's so many of those. There are many, actually. There are truly many. Because this is another thing I forgot to mention, which is when people start to give excellent service, you have to document it. Because bad news travels fast, so good stories need to travel just as fast. I would like to tell you that it's not just one story, but it's a whole series of stories that happened in 2008. In 2008, my country, your countries, went through the economic crisis of 2008. It was very, very painful. And in my country, a lot of people lost their job just overnight. Manufacturing jobs in Ontario were lost, jobs in the Atlantic were lost, etc. And stories began to pour in of Service Canada, people who had the job, whom we've had the discussions with, of not sitting back on their hands, waiting for the clients who'd lost their jobs to find their office and to find the form they had to fill out, etc. But actually going outside of their office, going to the workplace where and actually client fill out the form and being empathetic with their workplace. And we got stories from coast to coast of employees, not asked by their manager, not told to do this, but that went out of their way, went out of their office, some of them after hours, help their job. And this made such a difference in that crisis, I can tell you, and we went very hard to get people their first check in 28 days. If you compare that to 10 years before, this is not the attitude we had 10 years before. We had 10 years. Why did you lose your job? Are you trying to cheat the government? Are you lazy? And we would look down at people. And this crisis was totally different. And I remember receiving from every employee of my department received from the Prime Minister thanking us and celebrating the fact that we were empathetic and that we were also anticipating like that. So it was many, many stories that I got, and they really gave me a boost, and I can see the difference we could make in a crisis. So that would be my second.
Thank you, Richard. This one comes from within the audience in here.
Yes.
From Claudia. She wants to know, what about the quality, efficiency, and equity in the Social Security in these 5-star services that you are talking about? What are your considerations about those factors?
Efficiency and equity. Well, quality, efficiency, and equity, I may not have used these same words, but they are part and parcel of the 5 drivers I talked about. I mean, quality for me is both about content, is about the what of the programs, but also about the how they are delivered. And so I think that's an integral part. Efficiency also speaks to the timeliness factor that I talked about. I am telling you, if we're losing the war in some places, it's a efficiency. We're having great challenges meeting efficiency, and also with budget cuts comes less people to do more work. By the way, to those of you who are listening in, I am I agree or believe in any way that you can do more with less. I think you can do more with more, but maybe you can change things, you can hear things, and you need to rethink them. One of the things I do, and I remember doing this in a classroom in Ottawa with the armed forces, and it's something that many of you have lived if you've gone on a team building course. I take 4 tennis balls and I put them on the table. I ask each table to come up with a process whereby they touch each tennis ball consecutively as fast as they can. As fast as they can. I'm looking for the fastest process to do that. And to call me to the table, I found it. And so they all start, and it's very slow and everything else. And after a little, they'll call me over to the table, and it'll be 6 seconds or 12 seconds or 10 seconds. And then they'll all be very proud, and they'll slap each other's back and say, "Hooray, we found it. We can go for beer now. Cervezas for everybody," etc. It's magnificent, you know. And then I give them the reality check. You know what? Very nice, good work, but not good enough. This time, I know you're public sector, but I don't need to use your process. I can get this process in private sector for less than 1 second. So unless you can come up with process under 1 second, I don't want your process. Oh, shock! And then what? The team starts to work together. And eventually they find a process to get that process under 1 second. When we talk about efficiency in Social Security, I find that is where to challenge ourselves on efficiency. I don't think we're doing the best we can. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. But that's because there's no competition. So we need to find a way to motivate ourselves from inside to come up with the most efficient processes. And by the way, I never said they couldn't talk to each other. And yet they see themselves in competition when I do this exercise. So you're allowed to steal shamelessly from private sector and public sector for an improved process and bring in the possible thinking, because this is just as important as any process in private sector. And equity, to me, is the fairness point I was making earlier. I think that's where it starts and that's where it ends. So that's how it responded.
Well, the next question is, how does the lack of competition in the Social Security services provided by the government undermine a 5-star service? Is it possible to achieve a 5-star goal in services provided in a monopolic scenario?
No. Obviously, and that's what I was just alluding to. So it's like, for example, when you have a citizen or a client before you and you're giving them, you're talking to them about their pension, they're not going to complain because you're holding the big end of the stick. If you're a customs officer welcoming someone into your country and they have a gun, you're not going to complain about the service that they're giving you. If you're dealing with somebody reviewing your immigration papers, you're not going to complain about the services they're giving you. So there's no competition. And for sure, if you are not motivated from inside yourself to give good service, you can easily get away with bad service. Now, the question is there motivation? Well, I happen to believe, and it's been borne out for me, in fact, if you can touch the nerve inside of your organization, the nerve where it is that people have this common desire to make a positive difference, then they will be competitive. They will start to want to be the very best. They will see the public interest. in many ways, when I walk out of CIESS here and I see the flag of every member country of these organizations, CIS and CIESS, you know, behind those flags are citizens, behind those flags are families, behind those flags are communities. If you awaken in the people, there is no issue with this competitive thing, and it doesn't matter if you're monopolistic or you have competition, it will work out. I think you can motivate yourself from within for this work.
Thank you, Richard. Well, the next one is, when the structure of an organization is very rigid and the main leaders aren't open to change, what would be the first step to building a culture that allows innovation?
Okay. This has happened more than once in the years of service I had, and even if in main it wasn't the main leader, there was always one or two leaders that did not want to let go. Did not want to let go. Because it's very comfortable for managers especially to be able to shout out orders. And many of them were raised this way. Many of them, they came, and in fact, in my workplace, I worked mostly for female leaders, especially in Social Security, and came with the ways of the boys. The boys had the big testosterone fights in the workplace, scream at the person, tell them what to do, go get my coffee, go get my newspaper, etc. You're not allowed to think, etc. So there's still, in our workplaces, we're in transition, a lot of old think. Now, I told you what my view of leadership is. It's not the next level up. It's in every single one of us. L'union fait la force, the power of one, the power of unity. I'm telling you, we've seen great things happen in the world, and no revolution in the history of mankind ever started from the top. No single revolution in the history of mankind started from the top. Most of them started in the street, or they started, with people coming together across boundaries and deciding among themselves that things were going to change, and they changed. And I've seen this film played over and over again in the workplaces. Not big revolutions on the street and the flag and the burning of this, no, or throwing of chairs out the window and this kind of thing. But I've seen people come together, and I've seen people start to apply collective pressure for things to change. Because, by the way, the most senior leaders seem to get on board fairly quickly with this. And there are all kinds of indicators. For example, when a manager is losing 3/4 of his staff because of attrition, they're just leaving, they're leaving so fast. You have to ask yourself the question, why? And often you find out it's the human dimension, what's called the emotional intelligence. So, to me, even though the wall, there's a big wall in front of me, and I'm suggesting sometimes it can be in front of you, you're not alone. There's other people in front of that wall, and if you start holding hands with the people next to you who are facing the same wall, it's going to draw a little bit of strength and add a little bit of pressure. And you tend to find a champion somewhere. There's always somebody somewhere that champions this, and you make a strategic allegiance with them, and they start to move this. And over time, the wall crumbles. We've seen it in Germany in terms of the real wall, but we see walls crumbling all the time. And I think organizational walls are crumbling, and I think you have a great opportunity by actually taking, here's my thing. Don't tie yourself just to your boss. Don't tie yourself just to your job description. When you're driving a car, they teach you to look far ahead to be able to drive straight, right? They teach you to look far. If you look at the end of your car, you're going to drive like this. So find your north. What is it that you want to change in the world? Okay? Look, they say. In French, we say think biggest. So aim very, very high and start to go towards. Notice, looking to your right and your left, other cars are with you. And you're going to make alliances with them, and they're going to start to drive in the same direction. And that'll take you further faster than anything you might do. So again, don't be discouraged, and if you get discouraged, give me a call. I'll give you some energy.
Can you share good practices on innovation in service excellence? This is a request from our audience.
Yes. On innovation in service excellence. Okay, again, I've seen many, and I was giving you the example of the countries I visited. Okay, let me start in Chile, and maybe Jorge and others that I got to work with at the University, Felipe, and my colleagues in Chile will remember this. I was so impressed that not only did they teach service, but they actually tested people for it. It wasn't just a paper test. There were 4 exams that you had to pass to be able to be certified in service, and some of them involved role-playing, involved to see if you're a team player, you know. And the way they did that, I thought, and they came up with that, I thought was a best practice worldwide that should be adopted. I fly the plane over to back to Brazil. In Brazil, what I really like about the service center is it's not, you know, they've understood that citizens don't need categories, okay? You go to the service center, first of all, it looks like a giant warehouse. There are 550 government services under one roof. But the words that greet you, this huge sign across the lawn that is every citizen is equal in the eyes of the law, and it states their constitution. And that is the welcoming sign when you come up to. The second thing you see is a cafeteria. Very practical. And you know, when I remember the person who gave me the tour, he's such a nice man. He showed me the bathrooms. He says, these are the cleanest bathrooms, the baños, these are the cleanest washrooms in all of Brazil. They clean them every minute. They're so clean. Because we want the citizens to feel special, to feel as if this is a place that they can be proud of. They pay into it. This is their money that built this. They should have clean bathrooms, clean washrooms. And then another thing they have from time to time is they have social activity inside of the center, directly related. One time they had free haircuts on Saturdays. Free haircuts on a Saturday. You go in there, you get a free haircut. Now most places they don't want the clients to come. But there they open it up, and why not? It was building community, you know. And they had a section to help the handicapped and the elderly. And they had a section for those with disabilities. Desk would come up and down where they could roll themselves right up to the counter, etc., etc. That was amazing. And they also had something for the people who were illiterate, who could not read and write. They had volunteers who would come in and help them write their letter to the service that they needed, so that they would have somebody helping them write the letter. And they had somebody checking the letter to make sure it was properly done. And the last thing I saw in Brazil was Sintonia. Sintonia. It's an amazing little thing. It's an off-the-shelf computer program. Measures client satisfaction in real time. In real time. It's a computer program, so now you can imagine there could be 3,000 or 4,000 people in the center at the same time. We're talking Sao Paulo here. Yeah. It's 14, 15 million people converging on these centers all over. There are thousands of people in the building at the same time. And there's hundreds of agents, all cross-trained and everything. And the manager sits there, and every citizen who comes for a service has a little secret to assess the service. At the end of the service, the transaction cannot be concluded without a happy face, a not so happy face, or a sad face. And you must press the button or you can't get out. You must press the button. And all of those go in the machine, onto the desk of the manager, and he has a picture for every service, 500 services, what's going on, who's happy, who's not happy, why they're not happy. And all of a sudden, a red light goes on when a service is unhappy. The manager gets out of the chair and starts running everywhere. Gets everybody. Everybody runs to the service right away. They say, what's going on? The computer broke down. Okay, we have to take a strategy. We're going to do a manual process. And somebody gets up on top of a stool, announces to all the clients that are waiting that we have a computer process. We're going to fix it right away. Don't worry. Be happy. We have manual process. How many are you? Then goes and gets agents from other services and puts them there, etc. It's called Sintonia. It's in real time. Managers are not sitting in their offices waiting for the result of the annual survey. They're capturing the results in real time. It measures it for all of the state of Sao Paulo. The results automatically go to the sits there and looks at them, and they act on it immediately. That's a wow. I'm giving you just two examples but I could spend the next 5 hours giving you examples from every country I've been to. And I talked to you about, I just finished with India. I talked to you about that Indian Development Gateway. It's a super one. It's won a prize at the United Nations. This thing is a reflection of not only the India, how advanced they are in technology, but how good they have become at communicating with the least, the most marginalized people in society. It's just an amazing thing they've done. And in 20 some odd languages, we have 2, and it's very difficult. You can imagine that. So a lot of good things everywhere in the world that if you just connect into, you can learn from.
Thank you so much, Richard. This one is in Spanish.
Oh!
But I'll read it to you as well. Sometimes it is difficult to handle hostility. What could be the advice in this case? Hostility within the organization.
Hostility.
You want to read it?
Yeah. Well, that happens, okay? So hostility, let's start with, you can't just deal with it on the surface and pretend it's not there, okay? Sometimes you have to have, somebody told me, a very wise man told me, it's not bad to have confrontation sometimes. I'm not talking about fighting, physical confrontation, but I'm talking about having the elephant in the room, actually talking about the elephant in the room, and putting a finger on it. Again, I think hostility starts from inside. So usually there are people who are causing the hostility, and someone has to have a conversation with them, and not a blame conversation. This is not about blame, okay? There's a reason why people are hostile to new ideas often, or to a new way of doing things, or to a different approach. They've always been done in a particular way, etc. You need to find what is that root. And I do a lot of work in executive coaching, for example, where I sit down with people and try and scratch behind why, and it takes a little while. So you need to work at individual level. Let's start there. But then you also need to work at group level. I remember a situation where there was a lot of hostility, and it was a major technology project in Social Security. It was the release of a major technology system for the handling of pensions for seniors in Canada. And this was called release number 7. The 7th big major release of systems. 5,000 people operate that system every day, and they're used to doing it a particular way. Now, the people and this is an organization, as I told you, with about 17,000 people at the time, and there's 5,000 of them that have to change, okay? There's resistance, and there's hostility. Hostility was manifested in the following way. We had a committee, because in the last year before the project, that had to meet every week. And the head of the systems, and the head of the operations, and the head of the regional offices, and the head of the communications, and all of the different heads had to get together and agree with each other. Well, I tell you, the meetings were held like this. Nobody wanted to talk to each other. Half the people didn't come to the meeting. If they did come, would play with their BlackBerry under the table all the time and never talk to each other. And they would backstab each other. Leaving the room, they would blame the other person for the problems in the project. Everything was bad. And it was hostile environment. Result was the trust and confidence in the was low, and the people who were supposed to execute the 5,000, the confidence was low, and this project was now 4 months away from being a success. 4 months away, or a failure. And there was no going back. This time it had to happen. It was going to happen in May, and this was December. I'll never forget it, because all of this conflict, and I was in charge of the training or the learning for the people for this project. And somebody had the wise idea, a good colleague of mine had the wise idea to stop the press. Stop everything. Get all of us in the room for one day. And everybody came, very unhappy, not chickens. They were very unhappy, and they had to leave their work for a whole day. Imagine. But this leader insisted together, and they brought in a facilitator from outside to take us back to the house. Value. Why are we here? What are our common values and ethics? Oh, and everybody at the beginning was so negative about this. Oh, boring, you know. But we were forced into it. And some magic happened during that day because we started to decide among ourselves a team charter, a protocol, how we're going to work together, how we're going to get the job done. Because as we discovered the hostility, we all had the same goal, but we all wanted to take a different road to get there. So then, that's all that was the output of that day, was a newfound respect for each other, okay? And try and be empathetic. Look at the world through their glasses, not just your own. And some strange things started to happen. People actually started to show up to the meetings, to each other in a more civilized way. And 4 months later, the people, remember the telephone call, it was at 10 o'clock at night, the leader of the deputy minister called and said, are the systems ready? And the head of IT said, the systems are ready. And I applauded him. Are the processes ready? And the head of operations, we applauded him. Are the regions ready? And I was asked, are the people ready? The 5,000 people, the last person had been trained that morning. I said, yes, the 5,000 people are ready. And it took all that time. We finally become a team. And the next day we flipped the switch. And the reason I know this was a huge success is because you never heard about it. In government, things we do, you never get any compliments for. But if it goes badly and it goes in the media, then you hear about it. The bad news travels fast. So I'm very happy about this particular thing, and it was a turnaround in terms of a lot of hostility. But it happened because, first of all, coaching and coaching conversation among the people that forged the team.
Thank you, Richard. This next one is from Lisa Miller again. What are some practical ways to become a learning culture on a budget while you are convincing the upper leadership to increase the training budget?
You want to hold that one?
If you want to.
Okay. What are some practical ways to become a learning culture on a budget while you are upper leadership to increase the training budget? Okay. Learning I know a lot about. I was in charge of learning for several years in several departments, and at the end I was in charge of a major learning institution for the government of Canada. We tend to not think collectively when we do learning. Okay, we tend to each of us, we decide we want to go on a course. So we look it up in a calendar and we sign up for the course and we go. And that costs X amount of dollars. And this is going to go. When you add up all these pennies, it's a huge amount of money. Okay. I remember walking into this very large department and looking at project management. Everybody wanted to do project management because we had a lot of projects to manage. And I found out that 100 different courses of project management were given to all the different employees. 104 different ones. Everything from Joe's project management shop to Harvard Business School project in California project, etc. But there's a problem though. When the students would come back and we'd put them on a team, they couldn't work with each other. Because I learned it that way. And it's like the Tower of Babel that we created. And when I looked at how much we spent on that, it was a fortune. So we got all the people, the clients, my clients, together and we said, okay, what's needed here? And we decided together that we would have 4 or 5. Our buying power collectively to get the best price. We were able to get 10 courses for the price of 1 before. 10 for the price of 1. And similarly, we did the same exercise in finance training, in IT training, in language training in Canada. It's a big thing. And we were able to get an awful lot of money. Now, even though there are budget cuts going on, and the very serious ones in Canada, and I'm sure in your country as well, I repeat, my mouth hurts from saying it, do not slice training. It's not a wise thing. But as the people in charge of learning, you've got to make sure saying your bosses or the people that fund you, that people are getting their money. Now, be careful. It's very difficult to show investment when you're investing in training. It's very difficult to link a result with a course. It's difficult to do that. Don't pretend to. That's a dangerous slope, and I've tried that all my life, and it's a myth that you can actually do a one-to-one equivalent between a course and this. Yeah. But you can demonstrate the value for money to save many courses based on a business case. So the people who are involved in this have to think of it like a business. And I think you can go very, very far on very small amount of money by being creative. And look how creative we're being today using technology. It's amazing.
Yes, we are. So, next question. When a new manager arrives to an organization, how does he manage change and transformation and innovation without discarding the knowledge of the employees that were already there? How does he get them involved with this change?
Love this question. Wish I had a flip chart, but I'm going to imagine I have a flip chart. Okay, this is that's a danger when you walk into a new organization and you're a new manager with new ideas, and you come in and you say, "We have a problem. We're going to get rid of everything we used to do, and we're going to do it a new way, and everything's going to be wonderful." Right? In other words, it often starts with the negative of today and the positive of tomorrow. We always say there's a problem, and we're going to fix the problem this way. And then the manager just says it or announces it in an email or changes the organization chart, which, by the way, should do, not the first thing you do. Changing the organization chart only displaces the problem. That doesn't deal with the outcome. You should do that further down the road, not the first thing you do. Anyway, so we always go from today to the positive tomorrow. The problem with that attitude, workplace where the people love their job and they've been doing it for a time, is after a while, la résistance, the resistance organizes itself, and they'll start to say to you, "Hey manager, you know what? What you're describing as a positive of tomorrow also has some negative. Come to the negative of tomorrow." And then, before you know it, they say, "You know what? It's working well today. Why do we need to change?" And so you're in this vicious circle. The negative of today, positive tomorrow, negative of tomorrow, back to the positive today, and therefore we don't change. My thing is there's only one way manager can vicious circle. He starts with the strengths. He starts by what is working today. What are the assets we have? In India, I went for a month and studied community development. And it's called asset-based community development. You no longer go into a visit and say, "What's the problem here?" You go into a visit and say, "What's working here? What are the strengths that the people around this village bring?" And on that, you can build a cathedral. You can build a strong foundation, okay? As opposed to the problem here, then going away and fixing it and bringing back the solution. It never sticks, and their list of problems gets longer. See? So you have to go in with the strength. So my suggestion to an incoming manager who wants to introduce change because it's badly needed, yes, talk about what's not working today and what needs to be fixed and how it's going to be fixed for tomorrow. But at the same time as you're doing that, focus on what's good today, what's working today, and what you're going to carry forward from today's world into the new world that is a strength or something you can build upon. And if you work on those two axes at the same time, the resistance, you're cutting their legs out from under them, they can no longer resist. Because you've won the hearts and minds of the people in terms of what's solid, and you've not told them everything you used to do was bad, and you've also encouraged them to look higher and look at a new way of doing things. So that is the way to address that. If I was a new manager, and the last thing I would do, the first thing, I would never come into an organization and start to move boxes around in my organization chart. I'd study that for a year before I do. That's the last thing you do.
Thank you very much, Richard. Here's another question. It's kind of on the same way as the last one. Oftenly, in public service, when there is a change of management, the new management feels the need to leave a mark through some transformations that are not always needed, or even affects the good results of the organization. What can employees and frontline staff members do in such cases?
Oh, you're speaking to the converted now. First of all, there's two kinds of people. Okay, there's people who've been in the job for a long time, and they're about to retire, or they're about to leave, and the word legacy starts to appear in their vocabulary. What is going to be my statue? What am I going to leave behind to the good people that I've worked with for all these years? Where am I going to leave my mark? And you'll find that towards the end of somebody's term or work journey, they'll that. They'll be thinking about what is it that is their mark on in the sand, what is it that they're going to change. And similarly, when new people come in, as this is pointing out, they start from the very beginning and say, oh, I have to already think about what I want to start differently and do differently. And the sad thing is, often there's a big disconnect between the two. The person leaving is working, the person comes in and wants to and undo everything, all the good that's done. And the poor people who are being led are confused.
Yeah.
You know, so there's this crescendo, and then there's this, and it's so frustrating. And the film has played itself 1,000 times. So, what can people do in such? Again, I am of the view that leadership is not limited to the people at the top. Okay, leadership is not limited to the people at the top, and in our world, we have some kind of things called transition books and briefing notes and things that go up. You have an opportunity to get some. So leadership is about influence. So use every means at your disposal to influence that senior leader, whether it's a written thing, etc. Now, remember this. It's from the Bible. No one is a prophet in their own country. So you might be the most loyal employee, and you would tell your leader, please don't change that. That's a good thing. Don't change it. That's a solid thing. And they won't listen to you. So then what you have to do is you have to find somebody, a third party, to come from the side and tell the boss. Because sometimes they'll more believe the person from outside, because you're part of you're part of the forest. So I have this technique successfully. My idea, but I planted all kinds of people that went and at the cocktail or whatever, talked to the boss, and got the, and all of a sudden the boss has a change of heart, and I said that's very good, and I move on. Okay, so you can get outsiders to influence. So there's other techniques. Think if you start thinking and believing that you are leaders, then you start to know how to exercise your leadership skills, which is all about influence.
Thank you, Richard. We have one last question. This one comes from one of our members of the chat room, Rodrigo, once again. Richard, applying profiles to an organization to know themselves, does it really improve the way of communication inside it? And it's reflected in the way they serve the public?
I see where he's going here. I mentioned earlier psychometric assessment, dynamics. I believe very strongly that if you are a leader with great integrity, then you will do periodic 60-degree assessments. You'll get your staff, your colleagues, and your boss to assess you for your own personal development. I believe very strongly in that. But I also believe in self-awareness, and I believe that if you are very keenly aware of your communication style, and its ripple effect, because a lot of this is about communication. A lot of what I'm talking about, the space between chairs, is about solid communication. It's the current, the medium is the message. It's the leadership underneath. You need to be a 5-star communicator. So to be a 5-star communicator, you need to know your style. And to do that, instruments on the market, and I use one in particular, which is called Dynamics. It's a 20 online questionnaire that generates a 31-page profile about you that's 98% accurate. So it tells you exactly what your style is. And then, by the way, there's no right or wrong answer here. This shoe, it fits me well. I like my communication style, it fits me well. And usually after age 25, your style barely changes. It adapts a little bit to your work, but your style barely changes. Once you are master of your style, and you know the impact you have on people when you push your style, and when you're in a bad mood or you have bad days, this is what your style looks like. You're in a position to do something about it. And what you need to do is learn the other styles. Once you learn the other styles, you can adapt yourself to better connect. Like a chameleon, you can adapt yourself to better connect with others. And I have seen a 30% improvement in employee participation and engagement when people actually are self-aware of their style of communication and start to talk to each other. When they develop a common language around the water cooler, around their style of communication and how to communicate it. So all in all, I think it's it's, by the way, now because it's online, it's very low cost. So it's low cost, high return, high yield, and to start if you're wanting to move a culture. I recommend it highly. And so I do think it can be for the public. Because the real trick, by the way, you don't need to administer a test after a while to know what the style of communication of a member of the public coming at you is. If they're coming at you and they want a hug, well, you know what style they are, and you can adapt yourself. If they're a businessman and they want to be out of there in 10 minutes, then you know you have to have short sentences and text and chat like text if you want to please that client. If they're coming in, not looking at you or engaging you or shaking your hand, you know they're very introverted. You know how to adapt yourself to connect with them. A lot of us do this naturally. You know how to do it. It's quite simple to do. So, there you go.
Well, Richard, that was the last question. I think that without further ado, I should leave you to close this event with another funny hat.
Well, my last wish is Merry Christmas. I said at the beginning, be good to yourself, be good to each other. This is December. The holidays are coming, so I want to wish everyone in the Caribbean, and if you'd like some snow, we have plenty in Canada that I could mail you for Christmas. So if you'd like a nice little package of snow, we'll send you some. But this has been wonderful. This has been fascinating, and to share this with you, this time with you is precious. And thanks to those of you who are here. Thanks to those of you who watched. I hope some of it will be useful. And as they say in India, namaste. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Well, that's the end of our broadcasting. Please follow our since we are developing another activities for the English-speaking Caribbean of our members of our institutions. Next February, we will be having a seminar in Belize. So stay tuned with us and follow us through our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you.